Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Yoru knew the prices because his mom, Kidakami Megumi, used La Mer herself. He'd also heard of Guerlain's Orchidea Imperiale and Helena Rubinstein's Replasty. Tiny jars holding just a few dozen milliliters, priced at over 200,000 yen. While Yoru was stressing over the money, Yumeko, feeling that her boots were too hot, casually took them off, along with her black cotton socks. Her pair of pale, perfect feet rested directly on the cool floor, breathing in the fresh air. Thanks. Yoru didn't look too closely. He gave a quick thanks and left. Leaving the shopping street, Yoru quickened his pace toward the station. On the train home, he looked up prices for high-end skincare products on his phone. And practically turned pale. They were way too expensive. There was no way he could afford them. And it wasn't like he could ask his family for money just to buy a gift. Was the gift supposed to be extravagant? Not really. At least not from the standpoint of Yoru's family, or even Fujiwara Chika's. Her family was among the elite that practically ruled Japan. But I just can't think of anything else to give. Gratitude could be expressed any time. But Yoru wanted to do it before finals ended and summer break started. After wrestling with the dilemma for a while, he finally decided to set it aside for now. Chapter 74, Back Home. It seemed like San-san had forgotten how Yoru had forcibly given it a bath and dewormed it earlier. It affectionately rubbed up against Yoru's pant leg. Cats don't understand human society or behavior. Everything is seen from the cat's perspective. To San-san, Yoru leaving early and coming back late every day, only to have food ready when he returned, could only mean one thing: Yoru must have been out hunting for food. Hee. Yoru changed into his slippers, picked up San-san, and went back to his room. After putting down his backpack, he turned on the bathroom heater. He played with San-san for a while, then started preparing dinner. Opening the fridge, he saw that there wasn't much left. Most of what he'd bought at the market street yesterday were fruits and some clean, ready-to-eat canned goods. Fresh vegetables were running low. He dug out a bag of leftover potatoes, planning to make some mashed potatoes. Potatoes are high-quality carbs, even better than rice. But boiling them in plain water doesn't make them taste good. He washed, peeled, and sliced them, then steamed them over high heat for 10 minutes. While waiting, Yoru mashed a fresh tomato, added a bit of olive oil and some bottled ketchup, then added soy sauce to make a quick sauce. When the potatoes were done and cooled, he mashed them with a spoon, put them into a Ziploc bag, and flattened them with the back of a knife. Thump, thump, thump. The sound echoed in the kitchen for over 10 minutes. By the end of it, Yoru's arm was sore. He carefully stored the dinner without eating any of it. Yoru went back to his room to grab his phone, planning to head out. Be good while I'm gone. I'll open a can of food for you when I get back. He gave San-san's round little head a good rub and stepped outside. Aoyama-san, you're going out too? On the stairs, Yoru ran into Nanami Aoyama, who was dressed in plain clothes. Yeah, I'm heading to the supermarket. As usual, Nanami was off to grab discounted vegetables and meat. Want to go together? Yoru followed behind her. Sure. Nanami agreed without hesitation. The two walked out of the apartment and headed toward the nearest station. Come to think of it, Yoru looks a bit thinner than before. It really wasn't right of me to doubt him earlier. Nanami glanced sideways at Yoru, remembering past events. A pang of guilt rose in her heart, and she noticed that he really did look thinner. By the way, Aoyama-san, do you think someone like me could get a part-time job? Yoru suddenly asked. Nanami turned to look at him, distracted, not paying attention to where she was stepping. Her foot caught awkwardly, and she stumbled forward. Fortunately, Yoru had been watching her closely. He quickly reached out and grabbed Nanami's small hand, pulling her back upright with his chubby fingers. That scared me. Nanami glanced down nervously at the ground and her feet. As long as you're okay. Yoru said. Thanks. I totally spaced out. Would have fallen if not for you. Nanami let out a sigh of relief and patted her chest. helped again by Yoru. At that moment, Yoru let go of her soft, delicate hand. Nanami suddenly pulled her hand back, embarrassed, and looked away. Yoru didn't notice anything strange. He was lost in his thoughts. Soon, they arrived at the station. Nanami finally remembered what Yoru had asked earlier but now felt unsure whether to answer. Japan discriminates against overweight people. Yoru is still pretty fat. It'll be hard for him to get a job. No one's going to want to hire him. How should I say this? Well, maybe being fat means he's stronger? Nanami struggled to find a way to answer without hurting Yoru. In the end, she gave a vague, half-hearted response. Then she asked curiously, "Your family's doing pretty well, right? Why get a part-time job? There's something I want to buy, but it's expensive. I can't just keep asking my parents for money, right?" Yoru answered casually, hands behind his head. That one sentence hit Nanami right in the heart. She instantly felt a deep sense of understanding. Yeah, her own family was pretty average. Her dad insisted she inherit the family's doll shop, refusing to support her dreams. She really envied people who came from well-off families, especially in a materialistic city like Tokyo. She was just a country girl, studying at the elite Shuchen Academy as an impure student. She had no friends in her class. She worked hard at her part-time jobs, studied, and trained her voice acting skills. There was barely any time left for fun. The girls in her class were on a whole different level. The things they talked about, the places they hung out at, the makeup and clothes they used. Nanami couldn't even imagine that kind of lifestyle. Didn't dare to. Back in first year, people had even made fun of her Kansai accent. That's why she became so self-conscious about it. They reached the supermarket. Yoru and Nanami split up. One went for discounted meat, the other for fresh vegetables. Mackerel. Chicken wings. They'd arrived in time. Plenty of discounted goods were still available. After grabbing enough for two, Yoru also picked up a few small items for himself. They checked out and left together. Naturally, they paid separately. On the way back, the evening sun was warm and gentle. They chatted and laughed along the way. Once home, Yoru kept his promise and opened a can of food for San-san. He put his own food in the fridge, then went to take a shower. About 10 minutes later, Yoru walked out shirtless, tugging at his pants with both hands. Looked like he'd slimmed down a bit again. Really. It was starting to get tight. Without a dedicated machine, the mashed potatoes didn't come out super smooth, but the flavor was still solid. After eating, Yoru turned on his desk lamp and studied using Yukino's meticulously organized notes. She must have gone through a few pens writing them. Yukino was exactly the type who followed through on her promises. Serious and precise. What used to be a torturous period of study had now become enjoyable thanks to the tenfold experience buff. A certain slacker was now fully immersed. Why do people love games? Because in games, effort always leads to reward. In games, you can afford to buy your dream home. Yoru extended his study session by half an hour before finally switching off the lamp. After a short break, he pulled out his yoga mat. Time to go for it. Summer break would be over soon. He had to make every day count. In the blink of an eye, it was Thursday. Not counting today, there was only one day left before final exams. Time was incredibly tight. During morning homeroom, Hiratsuka-sensei came in to make an announcement. "Everyone quiet down. I have something to say. All eyes on me, eyes over here, stop writing for a moment." The beautiful, still single teacher tapped the podium, and the classroom immediately fell silent. Yoru thought Hiratsuka-sensei was kind, warm, and good-hearted. But not everyone saw her that way. "Tomorrow, Friday afternoon, you'll have a half day off to rest. Exams start the day after. Just like before, exams will be spread out over 4 days, with morning and afternoon sessions. The seating chart will be posted in tomorrow's school newsletter. It'll also be on the bulletin board, the school forum, and the official website. Don't get it mixed up. Make sure you note the time and set it as your phone's lock screen if you have to. Don't forget it. Every year, there's always 1 or 2 unlucky students who mess up the schedule." Hiratsuka gave a heartfelt reminder. Shuchen Academy took final exams very seriously. Midterms and monthly tests were relaxed, but the finals were on par with college entrance exams. Not only were there 2 teachers patrolling the classroom, but students were also scanned with detectors. Classes were shuffled across all grades, mixing students up. After finishing her announcement, Hiratsuka didn't stay long and left. Sawamura still hasn't come. Yoru was distracted, his thoughts elsewhere. It had been 5 days already. Surely she'd had enough time to recover? Yoru was desperate to know what Iriri was thinking and how she was doing now. While he was thinking about Iriri, she was worrying about him too. Edogawa Ward. Izumi Sagiri's home. Airi was once again trapped in the same tormenting nightmare. Her eyes tightly shut, brows furrowed, her body twitched occasionally, her breathing was erratic, and she was drenched in sweat. Sagiori, who was already in a light doze, was awakened by Airi's unrest. "It's okay now, Airi. Sagiori yawned, gently held her sister figure's hand, and softly comforted her. "Sagiori." Airi calmed down, opened her eyes, and dove into Sagiori's arms. She hadn't slept properly in days. Every time she closed her eyes, horrifying scenes would resurface in her mind. It's okay. I'm here with you." Sagiori stroked Airi's head gently. Her soft, baby fat cheeks showed a rare flash of anger. That disgusting fat loser actually dared to do something so vile to her Airi. Unforgivable. Though not related by blood, Airi and Sagiori were closer than sisters. They knew everything about each other. Whenever something happened, Airi always confided in Sagiori. "Airi." Sagiori tried to soothe her, gently urging her not to cry. She knew the whole story. Honestly, it had been Airi's fault. She had gone too far. But feelings weren't something you could control, and Sagiori would always side with Airi. She wasn't about to sympathize with the disgusting fat guy, nor would she blame Airi for her current state. "I should go out less too. It's just too dangerous out there." Sagiori silently reaffirmed her resolve. A troubling thought crossed her mind. Could her own unlucky nature have caused all of this? What if staying with her had brought misfortune to Airi, and that sicko went after her again? No. That's ridiculous. She quickly shook off the thought, but her mood darkened again. On that soft pink bed, the two cute, delicate girls clearly needed comfort. A long while later, Airi finally relaxed. Her expression still bitter, she pulled Sagiori out of bed. "I'll make breakfast. Get up." Airi had come over the night before and eaten some instant noodles with Sagiori. "Okay." Sagiori nodded cheerfully. "Oh yeah. Smell my feet. Do they stink?" Airi dragged Sagiori out of bed, slipped her soft feet into slippers, then suddenly froze. Her expression turned fierce and vengeful. Did she want revenge on Yoru? Of course. But she didn't dare. Part of it was guilt. She had been in the wrong first, which had led to Yoru thinking she was a thief. Then he ended up getting hospitalized, which only deepened her regret. If only I had a way. I can't confront him head-on, but maybe I can get back at him in a sneakier way. Airi's expression twisted again as she raised her foot toward Sagiori. It was small, delicate, snow-white, with curled pink toes. An absolutely perfect little foot. Doesn't smell. Smells nice actually. Sagiori sniffed and tilted her head, puzzled. It's fine. I bought a ton of groceries. Airi shook her head and pushed the nasty thoughts away for now. She brought Sagiori to the bathroom to wash up. Sagiori was just too adorable. Even though Airi hoped she'd live a normal life, the outside world was too dangerous. She had to protect her sweet Sagiori from the filthy world. After washing up, the big and little duo headed to the kitchen, hand in hand. Airi took out the eggs, bacon, toast, butter. She was going to make a hearty English breakfast. I think it goes like this. Airi was ready. Until she got stuck at the first step of her memory. She had absolutely no cooking skills. She'd been a disaster during home economics class. Meanwhile, Sagiori was mixing up milk nearby, watching Airi with suspicion. Not wanting to be looked down on, Airi straightened her back and acted confident. Usually, Sagiori just ate canned food or instant meals. She even avoided delivery out of fear of going outside. Since she was here, Airi wanted to give Sagiori something fresh and fulfilling. The pan heated up. The butter started to melt. Airi tossed in a huge slice of frozen bacon. The icy bacon immediately clashed with the hot butter. Pop. It exploded. Airi, terrified, instinctively jumped back towards Sagiori. Airi, you have to defrost it and lay it in gently, one slice at a time. Sagiori frowned, calmly instructing her. The cooking skills she had taught herself were far better than Airi's. Oh, it's fine. Don't worry. You go wait outside. I've got this. The exploding oil sounds slowly settled down. Airi took a breath and sent Sagiori out of the kitchen. No way she'd give up. Sagiori, a little worried, kept glancing back as she left. With the kitchen quiet again, Airi went back to the stove and quickly pulled out her phone to search for a tutorial. With step-by-step guidance, she managed to avoid more disasters. About 10 minutes later, she came out with a plate of food and sat beside Sagiori. Is this really edible? Sagiori had a milk mustache and eyed the plate doubtfully. The bacon was almost black. The egg had eggshell pieces in it. The sausage looked chewed up. It probably hadn't cooked through the first time. She must have recooked it after slicing it open and seeing it was still frozen. This is awful. Ariri immediately spit it out, laughing awkwardly. That disgusting fat guy's seafood rice had actually been amazing. Ugh. You fat freak. If I ever get the chance, I'll get back at you. And how is she going to come clean to that woman, Kasamajoka Utaha? Aki. Let me make breakfast instead, Ariri nay. Sagiori helplessly picked up the breakfast, which looked good but was inedible. A glass of milk, 1 egg dipped in egg wash and fried in a pan. That alone would have been fine. Or something more elaborate, tomato slices, lettuce, a slice of bacon or ham, all tucked into a toasted sandwich. Chapter 75, on the highly private rooftop of Shuchin Academy. A perfect place for serious discussions. In the shadows, on an old bench, a fat guy was sitting beside a beautiful girl whose expression barely ever changed. You seem to be in a good mood. Yoru, aren't you worried at all? Megumi asked, her voice light as she let the cool rooftop breeze wash over her. Not really. Grades don't jump overnight. You have to build them up gradually. Yoru smiled as he took out 2 cans of black coffee from his pocket, handing one to Megumi. It's a bit bitter. You might not like it. But with finals coming up, we need it for the review grind. As he spoke, Yoru opened the can and took a sip. Thanks. Did something good happen to you recently? Megumi noticed that Yoru had been smiling quite a bit while with her today. That hadn't been his usual demeanor. Yeah. I might be able to clear my name soon. If not, I'd be expelled from Shuchin for failing the year. Yoru held the bottle of black coffee in his large hand as he stood up, looking down from the rooftop at the gorgeous Shuchin campus. Ariri hadn't shown up today. He wondered when she would finally go talk to Kasamajoka Utaha and clear things up. But with summer break coming soon, maybe it didn't matter right now. Still, what kind of conflict could have possibly led Ariri to do something so stupid? Like stealing Utaha's stockings and panties as some kind of revenge? He was curious, but it wasn't his business. No matter how bad things got, the fire in someone else's backyard wasn't going to spread to his. Right? That so? Congrats then. Megumi paused, looking at Yoru's back as she spoke. Then she took a sip of the coffee. And immediately scrunched up her face in disgust. Yeah. Yoru responded softly. He didn't mention that Ariri was the real culprit. With finals around the corner, time was tight. After a brief break on the rooftop, they both left separately. Megumi took small sips of the black coffee. It wasn't so bad once you got used to the bitterness. It wasn't undrinkable. Guess I'll get back to studying. Her seat was near the front, so she re-entered through the front door and returned to her desk. At that moment, Tomoyaki was rushing in, still distracted by the fact that Ariri hadn't been to school for several days. He didn't watch where he was going. In the narrow aisle between desks, he brushed right past Megumi. Megumi politely stepped aside, but Tomoya, completely absorbed in thoughts of his childhood friend Ariri, didn't even try to avoid her. He bumped into her shoulder and even stepped on her toe. And yet he walked on like nothing had happened. Sigh. Megumi let out a soft breath. It didn't hurt, but it was uncomfortable. She glanced back at him and frowned slightly, visibly annoyed. Megumi, who rarely got angry, was genuinely upset. Tomoya made his way outside during lunch break to check Ariri's classroom. She still wasn't there, and he started to feel worried. She hasn't been here in days. She's always been frail. Is she sick again? Wait, did I just step on someone? He scratched his head, lifting his foot to check, but he had no memory of it at all. Megumi's presence was so low that she didn't even register in his mind. Tomoya wandered back to class, sitting alone in his seat. A rich girl like Ariri probably doesn't need anyone worrying about her. If she gets sick, she just needs to make a call and a personal doctor will come to her house. She doesn't even have to leave her room. He mumbled quietly to himself, thinking of her. His childhood friend, Ariri Spencer Sawamura. A proper lady from a prestigious family, beautiful and refined. And him? Just a regular guy, living a regular life. Aside from having a decent online following, he had nothing going for him. He knew deep down that he wasn't worthy of her. But he lacked the courage to do anything about it. If he chose one of them, he'd be hurting the other. That included Kasamajoka Utaha. Elegant, cold, stunningly beautiful with a curvaceous body, and top of her class both academically and athletically. Not to mention she was a best-selling light novel author. Both of them. Deeply in love with him. Thinking about that made Tomoya feel smug. A smile crept across his face. The school's unattainable flowers, the aloof and lovely Ariri, and the cool, sexy Utaha. Both liked him. Hey look, Tomoya's smiling to himself again. What's he doing? Just ignore him. He's one of those hardcore otaku. Probably fantasizing about some waifu. True. Guys like him probably blush just from talking to a girl. Ha ha ha, right? A top-tier beauty is way out of our league. But regular girls are easy enough. Not far away, a group of self-proclaimed chads were laughing while watching Tomoya. Hey. If only you knew. You'd all die of jealousy if you realize that Utaha-senpai and Airi, the girls you drool over every day, are both into me. Tomoya felt no shame. On the contrary, he felt a surge of joy as he adjusted his black-rimmed glasses. Sure, he'd never held hands with either of them. But he firmly believed that if he confessed, both Utaha and Airi would say yes. Utaha's face and figure were truly god-tier. Those long, fleshy, beautiful legs wrapped in black stockings every day. And further up. He didn't even dare imagine. Tomoya chuckled to himself. But this kind of story usually only happened in Jinshai? And only in the first half. The useless loser protagonist and several unattainable beauties mutually liked each other, but the guy was too cowardly and insecure to make a move. He was afraid of hurting their feelings. In the end, those cold and elegant beauties would get taken by some disgusting fat loser, who turned them into obedient, devoted little girlfriends who bent over backward to please him. Time passed quickly. It was now after school. Inside the service club room, Yukino was giving Yora his usual tutoring. Afterward, she and Uegahama started chatting. Lately, Uegahama had only been coming to the club every other day. Yukino said it was because she had things to help out with at home. Yaru tapped his fingers on the table, chewing his pen in boredom. After a while, Uegahama turned to him. Kitakami-kun, did you figure out the thing you asked me about that day? Yoru didn't even look up. He just shook his head. Yukino lifted her eyelids slightly, gave him a quick glance, and went back to reading. I see. Uegahama had actually stayed up late that night thinking about how to help him. She still hadn't come up with a good solution. Kitakami-kun must want to thank Yukainon, right? She secretly peeked at Yukino. Yukino had indeed put in a lot of work and was extremely responsible. After the club session. You all got tomorrow's notice, right? No club activities in the afternoon. Don't come in during lunch either. As they left, Yukino reminded them. Got it. See you tomorrow, Yukainon, Kitakami-kun. Uegahama waved cheerfully and hurried off. Yoru went to use the restroom. With finals approaching, most clubs had already stopped their activities as of Monday. Students now preferred to study in the library, hold review sessions at family restaurants, or just study at home. When Yoru came out of the restroom, the halls of Shuchin were nearly deserted. It's getting hotter. He walked under the dappled sunlight, wiping a bit of sweat from his forehead, and stopped to buy a cup of herbal tea. Something to cool down. After a few sips, he continued toward the train station at the end of the shopping street. On the way, he ran into someone he hated. Kasumidoka Utaha. Yoru recognized her back immediately. It was hard not to. A high school girl with a body that mature and seductive stood out. He followed at a distance. Utaha soon entered a store. Yoru's mind wandered to thoughts of revenge. The real culprit who stole her stockings and panties was Sawamura. But there was no hard evidence. Kasumidoka Utaha simply insisted it was me. She even stirred up the other students and forced the school to search all my personal belongings. She tried to get me expelled. The principal tried to stop the rumors, but everyone knew about it on the first day of school. Utaha definitely fueled it behind the scenes. One word from her, and the whole school believed it. She never denied it. Just let everyone think I was guilty. Yoru clenched his fists. The anger rose again. Sure, he hadn't been expelled. Only because of Hiratsuka-sensei's trust. But what if she hadn't believed in him? One misstep, and his entire life would have been ruined. Yoru wasn't the type to hold grudges easily, but he wasn't generous either. Once the truth came out, an empty apology from Utaha wouldn't cut it. Unless she got on her knees like a dog and begged for his forgiveness. And paid him a hefty sum. Hey! Yoru suddenly let out a chuckle, realizing he might have been overthinking. Not to mention someone like Kasumidoka Utaha, a high and mighty flower used to being chased and flattered by boys. Cold and arrogant to the extreme. Even regular girls would hardly act that way. Or maybe force Kasumidoka Utaha to drop out? TCH. A top student with sky-high popularity, there's no way Shuchin Academy would let that happen. She's definitely under their protection. Beat her up like Airi? Airi was a ticking time bomb, and since the time rewind could only be used once, she knew she'd wronged him first. Kasumidoka Utaha's temper was even worse. She'd blow up at the slightest touch. It wouldn't be that easy to succeed. Unless, someday, Airi becomes a docile little puppy who thinks only about him and lives for him. Then maybe he could save the time rewind ability. It was his trump card, after all, to survive unexpected danger. And then there's Shinomiya Kaguya. Sawamura still hasn't clarified things. I'll wait and see how it goes. Yoru stopped beside a trash can, downed the awful-tasting herbal tea, and pushed those premature thoughts out of his mind. He started walking again at a leisurely pace and arrived at the shop Utaha had entered. It was a chain of affordable luxury clothing stores, conveniently located near Shuchen. Made sense. The students here had money to spend. Now that summer had arrived, the most prominent display in the store showcased a row of hats in all styles. Men's and women's hats alike. Looking in through the glass window, Yoru suddenly thought of the perfect gift. Yes, a hat. No need to worry about sizing like with clothes or shoes, not as expensive or specific as jewelry either. A hat would be just right. And it didn't necessarily have to be a summer-only gift. It wouldn't feel out of place, and the price was reasonable. He could give one to Yukino. They were familiar enough, and the age fit. Hiratsuka-sensei wasn't really a good fit. Fujiwara Chika. Barely knew her. Not really an option either. Yukino Shita works. Yoru stepped into the store decisively, and sure enough, Kasumidoka Utaha was trying on hats. Ignoring the woman in black stockings, Yoru moved to another section and began scanning the shelves. A black baseball cap with hand-stitched seams? Too plain. Not suitable. A large sun hat with exotic flair and plastic flower rings? Girls might wear it, but it was too limited, something you'd only see at the beach. None of these work. Yoru began choosing more carefully. Meanwhile, Utaha put down a sheer, wide-brimmed white hat and asked the only shop clerk, "Excuse me, do you have any other hat styles? What kind of features are you looking for, ma'am?" The shop clerk smiled warmly. With finals approaching, very few students were out shopping, so the clerk was extra attentive. Something that blocks the sun, goes with different outfits, and looks good. Utaha answered without hesitation. "We just got a batch of trial sale hats that have been a huge hit at every store. Want to take a look? There are only a few left." The clerk gestured for Utaha to follow. The shop wasn't big. After passing a rack or two of clothes, they arrived. "Kitakami?" Utaha stopped behind the clerk and called out to the overweight nerd clutching two white berets. Hearing the familiar voice, Yoru looked up without much surprise and gave her a glance before lowering his head again to study the two berets in hand. The moment he saw them, he felt they were a perfect match. The clerk turned to Utaha with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, miss, but those two white berets are the new stock. And that customer already has them." "It's fine." Utaha narrowed her wine-red eyes, studying the person she found absolutely disgusting. That night, after things happened, her stockings and panties were probably violated, right? Being constantly confessed to and harassed, Utaha knew all too well how twisted some creepy nerds could be. Especially Yoru, the one she'd found had a stash of foot fetish gens. Gross. "Stepping on you might be doing you a favor," Utaha muttered softly, turning to leave. But her gaze lingered on the white berets in Yoru's hands. Her eyes lit up. They were beautiful. And they fit her needs perfectly. Utaha had already taken a liking to them. Her face showed it. There was a thin plastic film on the berets, so no worries about Yoru dirtying them with his touch. But these were clearly women's hats. Why was he even looking at them? The shop clerk had already stepped aside. "Why are you staring at me, Kasumidoka Utaha?" Yoru looked up, confused. "Hey." Utaha clearly had no intention of responding. She let out a short breath and folded her arms. "You want this?" Yoru noticed Utaha's eyes locked onto the beret in his hand. "Yeah, why?" Utaha nodded, still staring at Yoru with curiosity. Did he just ask if she wanted it? Was he trying to curry favor? Afraid of being expelled? Hey. Not a chance. Dream on. Utaha naturally assumed Yoru was just another twisted creep. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. Yoru used to be like that. Not even a single same-gender friend, let alone girls. Who would have guessed that this infamous Yoru actually had decent relationships with several beautiful girls? Oh. Yoru had only planned to buy one. He glanced at the price. Not too expensive. There were two anyway. He could give one to Megumi? In his mind, Yoru painted a vivid picture. Megumi wearing the beret he gave her, standing on a cherry blossom-covered hill as petals fluttered around her in the wind. The hat slips off, falls down the slope, and he picks it up for her. And Yukino in a park, with cute twin ponytails. Forget it, couldn't picture that one. Yoru carried both white berets and walked past Utaha to the register. Utaha, huh? What are you doing? The beauty who was used to being flattered had assumed Yoru was trying to please her, fearing expulsion. At the very least, this was a woman's hat. There was no way a gross nerd like him would actually buy it. I'm buying them. Yoru looked back and shrugged innocently. You did it on purpose? Trying to piss me off? Yutaha shot back, locking eyes with him. Who do you think you are? I could just as easily make you bark like a dog or punch you in the face. Yoru rolled his eyes and snapped back. He wasn't the same timid guy anymore. The one who used to stutter and avoid girls altogether. You? Yutaha took a shocked step back, scanning Yoru from head to toe. How bold. She squeezed out the words between gritted teeth, her face twisted with disgust. The Yoru from before wasn't like this. Had he slimmed down a bit? That's when Yutaha noticed. Yoru had lost some weight. He ignored her and went to pay. Ariri was proud, right? He'd made her wear the prideful face while insulting and looking down on him, then splashed milk in her face in return. The harder something is to get, the more Yutaha would want it, and the fact that this gross nerd bought something she wanted before she could. Yeah, she was definitely a little irritated. After paying, Yoru asked the clerk to wrap it nicely, with a box. He walked out holding the box, only for Yutaha to chase after him and block his way. Usually, people would be the ones chasing after Yutaha. Did this count as her chasing him? Yoru didn't say a word. He didn't even look at her. Just changed direction and walked around her. Sell me one of those hats. Yutaha shouted, nah. Yoru didn't even turn around. You bought those 2 hats just to piss me off? Let me tell you, there's no need. Yutaha chased after him again. From childhood to now, the only person who'd ever gotten the better of her was Tomoya. Getting upset? Yoru smiled. Yutaha pressed her alluring lips together, her expression shifted slightly, then she shut her mouth. Yoru wasn't afraid at all. He was actually holding himself back to avoid losing it and beating Yutaha up. That arrogant bitch Ariri had insisted on clearing things up with Yutaha. Who knew what she was really up to? Yoru could have said it now. But to avoid upsetting Ariri, he let it go for now. He was being cautious. And what's the harm in that? Being reckless would be worse. After all, he had already given Ariri that arrogant bitch a brutal beating. Ariri had been stupid enough to sneak off and steal Yutaha's stockings and panties. She could make the same kind of mistake again. Besides, the hatred between them, or rather, Ariri's current one-sided grudge against him, was practically impossible to erase. His mark had been carved deep into Ariri's psyche. Watching Yoru leave without looking back, Yutaha stomped her foot in anger, then turned and went back inside the store. She bought the sheer white sun hat from earlier, then stormed out. At the train station, she ran into Aki Tomoya. Aki-kun, where are you headed? Yutaha walked up to greet him. Ah. Yutaha-senpai. Tomoya wasn't stupid. He was going to check on Ariri, but if he said that, it'd definitely upset Yutaha. What is it? Yutaha pressed, her gaze sharp. She could tell something was off. Ariri hasn't been to school for several days. I was a bit worried, so I thought I'd go check on her. Tomoya stammered, speaking in a small voice. It wasn't that he didn't know how to lie. He just knew there was no way he could fool Yutaha, so he might as well be honest. That only made Yutaha angrier. Ariri again. She'd already been irritated earlier, and now the boy she liked was going to visit the girl she hated. Chapter 76, Yutaha was livid. She just wanted Aki Tomoya to disappear from her sight immediately. The farther, the better. Not even for a second more. Yutaha-senpai. Ariri. Ariri hasn't been at school for nearly a week, that's why Seeing Yutaha's expression turn darker, Tomoya quickly tried to explain. He had some emotional intelligence, but not much. Yutaha was already furious. One sentence was enough. Saying more just poured salt on the wound. Tomoya thought he was clarifying things to calm her down, but it only made it worse. Girls are emotional creatures. Logic won't get through to them. Yutaha. Senpai? Tomoya didn't dare leave without her response. It's fine, Aki-kun. Go ahead. Yutaha forced away the irritation on her face and answered him calmly. The boy in front of her had slightly long, thick hair and wore large black-rimmed glasses. His body was thin, with no physical advantages. He looked exactly like a cuckolded protagonist from those certain kinds of manga. That's great. Thanks, Yutaha-senpai. Tomoya smiled brightly, which only fueled Yutaha's fury. Then he ran off. Seriously. Aki-kun, you jerk. So annoying. Next time don't even show your face to me. Yutaha didn't feel any better. In fact, she was even more pissed off now. The reason? Tomoya's every word and action screamed concern for Ariri. Meticulous and full of care. He even remembered how many days she'd been absent. Ariri, that kind of rich princess, probably has a private family doctor. Even if she needs a hospital, it's VIP service. Does she really need you to check on her? Humphrey, Aki-kun. Yutaha rubbed her forehead with her soft, fair fingers and grumbled in frustration. When it came to her own problems, why didn't he show the same concern? And her situation was way more serious than Ariri not showing up to school. Just who the hell has been stalking me? If I catch them, I swear I won't let them off easy. I've been suffering from nervous breakdowns all semester, damn it. Yutaha's anger at Tomoya was quickly buried under something else. Come on. She was a top-tier beauty, a young high school JK. From the frenzy of stalking at the start of the semester to it tapering off a bit, the feeling of being watched still lingered from time to time. It had lasted a whole semester. Every time she walked out of the school gate, from Shuchin's front to the edge of the shopping street and all the way to the station, that disgusting pervert would follow. Who could stand that? I thought it was Kitakami at first, but he's too fat, so it's not him. Yutaha muttered while walking to a vending machine, buying a drink and taking a sip. The sweet and tangy flavor helped her calm down just a little. Elsewhere, Yoru was sitting in the train carriage, holding two neatly wrapped boxes and thinking about how to give them out. Should he give them in person? It was just a gift of thanks. Not a confession or anything. Yukino probably wouldn't reject it. And it would be more respectful. Yeah, in person. The other one he could give to Megumi later, or even to his mom, Megumi. It was only 2 stops. He arrived quickly. He got off and walked a short distance home. Along the way, he ran into Nanami. Aoyama-san. Yoru called out to her from behind. Good afternoon, Yoru-kun. Hearing the familiar voice, Aoyama Nanami quickly turned around and gave a small smile. She stopped in place, waiting for Yoru to catch up. You're not working this afternoon? Yoru knew Nanami had been working hard at her part-time job. I quit half an hour ago, so I'm not working anymore. Nanami subtly moved a bit away from Yoru, keeping a bit of distance. Why? Yoru blinked in surprise, curious. Finals are coming up. I want to focus on studying and get the best grades I can. Besides, think about it. Summer break's coming up. A month and a half is plenty of time for part-time work. No need to rush, right? Nanami smiled lightly, brushing away the strands of hair stuck to her temple with sweat. It was summer, and the weather was hot. While working, she wore Shuchin's black heat-absorbing uniform under a supermarket's reflective vest. Running around in the blazing sun had made her sweat a lot. Her uniform clung to her smooth back, soaked in sweat. The brown loafers paired with her uniform weren't breathable either, and her black socks were stuffy. Nanami felt a little sticky and uncomfortable. She kept her distance from Yoru mostly because she didn't want him to smell her sweat. That would be way too embarrassing. You've got a point, but I remember high school students aren't supposed to work more than how many hours again? Yoru asked curiously. The two walked into the residential area, heading back to their apartment building. He. No more than 28 hours per week. No adult services. Can't work past 10 p.m. Nanami laughed like she remembered something funny. But you work 10 hours just on weekends, don't you? And you're working mornings and afternoons on weekdays too. Yoru recalled how Nanami would leave early and come home late, with almost no time to rest. Well, if I don't say it, who would know? Nanami clasped her small hands behind her back and rolled her eyes at the sky. Yoru stayed silent, inwardly impressed by the beautiful girl next to him. A few minutes later, they arrived at the apartment building and went their separate ways. Nanami, carrying her school bag, slowly climbed the stairs. She pulled out her keys and opened the door to her apartment. Ah. So tired. Finally, a few days to rest. As soon as she stepped inside, Nanami dropped the act. Her whole body radiated exhaustion. Her facial expression collapsed completely. She casually tossed her school bag aside, sat on the entry step, and began taking off her shoes. My feet are soaked with sweat from running around all day. She hooked the back of her shoes with her index fingers and easily slipped them off. Her socked feet, clad in black cotton ankle socks, released a faint coolness after being trapped all day. She slowly rolled her socks down and took them off. A pair of flawless, slightly moist, white feet were revealed. Even though Nanami often ran around for her part-time job, her feet were surprisingly well cared for, showing no signs of yellowing or calluses. No doubt, they were a perfect pair of beautiful feet. So sore. She sniffed the black socks and immediately grimaced in disgust, wrinkling her delicate little nose. Girls tend to be more hygiene conscious. In truth, they didn't smell that bad. Just a faint scent, nothing overwhelming, like the right seasoning for a dish. The day before final exams. Friday. Today, Yoru woke up a little earlier than usual. He sat on his small bed for a while, then went to wash up. In the mirror, it was clear the fat on his face had noticeably thinned. A person who had been morbidly obese was now nearing the severely obese category, right on the edge. Gurgle gurgle. After spitting out toothpaste, Yaru wiped his face with a towel and cleaned up the apartment. Once done, he made breakfast and set it aside. He pulled out the yoga mat and began his usual aerobic workout. At this stage of his weight loss, Yaru had clearly adjusted his plan. Jumping jacks now targeted his full body fat better than planks. Originally, due to his extreme size, he had focused on planks. Now, he was gradually increasing his number of jumping jacks. More than half an hour later, he started eating breakfast. He emptied his backpack, leaving only the notes Yukino had given him. Then he placed a delicate gift box containing a white beret inside. Still sleeping, huh? Before leaving, he gently patted Sansan's round head. She'd become a ball. Gabriel surprisingly got up early, showing no signs of staying up late. Looks like you actually care about the finals, Gabriel. Yoru nodded slightly. What, do you care? Not really. Gabriel wasn't lying. Her mind had already shifted back to Gakapul's. I'm doing okay. I'd have panicked before, but not now. Yaru wasn't nervous or stressed. Finals didn't weigh much on his mind. That said, he did want to use the finals to see how much he had really improved. After being absent from school for a month and a half, he'd missed a lot of lessons. His previous tutoring was just laying the foundation. The finals would be like inspecting the house. He wanted to see if he had made progress. Or fallen behind. The tenfold effort buff had clearly taken effect. It was powerful. As for the little luck magical buff, Yaru hadn't really noticed any luck. He hadn't gotten discounts while shopping or found any money. But that wasn't the point. What mattered was that the buff helped him avoid danger. That was the real value. That box from Sawamura covered a lot. Yoru thought about the treasure chest he'd opened from Mariri. Avoiding danger was great, but it wouldn't protect him from doing something dumb. Danger meant falling objects from tall buildings, traffic accidents. Doing something dumb would be, for example, barging into Shinomiya Kaguya's house and treating her the same way he treated Ariri. That would be suicidal. As for the magical power, he hadn't felt a thing. No one would like a disgusting fat otaku like him anyway. Maybe I can lose a lot more weight during summer vacation? What will I look like by then? And I've still got 4 golden treasure chests waiting to be opened. What kinds of amazing rewards are in store? Hayasaka Garasumifu, Kasumajoka Utaha, Shinomiya Kaguya. With different thoughts in mind, Yaru and Gabriel arrived at Shuchen. Shortly after, they split up and went to their respective buildings. On the floor where his classroom was located, Yaru slowed his steps and tilted his head. Sawamura's not here yet. He was slightly surprised, but not too shocked. After all, he was huge. Yeah. His body size. With finals tomorrow, Ariri will probably show up. He muttered under his breath and entered the classroom through the back door. The morning study session hadn't started yet. Most students were quietly studying on their own. A few were whispering softly. There were no formal classes that morning. Just self-study. After hanging up his bag, Yoru sat down as usual and stared out the window, thinking about something else. He didn't have Yukino's contact info. He'd have to catch her after school to give her the white beret. Hey, Yumiko, how about we go to the beach after finals? All of us. Summer beaches are the best. Tobekakeru swapped seats with Yumiko and spoke among the popular group. After saying that, he subtly glanced at Ebina. His thoughts were fully on her, though his eyes lingered on Yumiko. Huh? But I wanna sing karaoke. Tokyo beaches aren't even that nice. Yumiko hesitated. The sea at Kamakura in Kanagawa is pretty good. Lots of foreign tourists go there in summer. Said Yamato from the group. We can go during summer break. What about you and Hina? Tobe turned to Uegahama and Ebina with hope in his eyes. As long as Yumiko and you are in, I'm fine with it. Ebina paused, then added, hot summer days, shirtless hunks at the beach, rubbing together to ignite love. Hina. Yue groaned. Her Fujishi bestie was acting up again. I'm okay with it. Hayato said with a smile. Their conversation was quiet, but Yoru was sitting too close and heard it all. The morning passed quickly. During self-study, no teachers were around. Yoru left the classroom 1 minute early through the back door. As he reached downstairs, the final bell rang. He had already changed his shoes and stepped outside. He wasn't in a rush. He wanted to buy a black coffee outside. His usual vending machine was out of stock, so he settled for a bottle of juice instead. After a sip, he picked a quiet, shaded spot and waited patiently. After a while, students began pouring out of the building. In the crowd, Yoru spotted Yukino walking alone. To avoid embarrassing her and attracting strange looks from others, he kept signaling to her with his eyes as she approached. He was a gross, fat otaku. Going up to the school's most unattainable beauty? What would others think? If people found out, his peaceful days would be over. There were plenty of guys secretly in love with Yukino. Very quickly, Yukino noticed Yoru's gaze and frowned slightly in confusion. Yoru signaled for her to come over and follow him. After a brief hesitation, Yukino walked toward him. Her older sister, Yukino Haruno, was coming to pick her up, so she couldn't linger too long. Once they were in a secluded spot, Yukino watched curiously as Yoru rummaged through his bag. "What's that?" Her eyes were drawn to the delicate gift box Yoru pulled out. "It's a gift for the end of the semester. Just wanted to thank you." The box was well preserved without any dents. Yoru examined it carefully and then handed it over. "Oh?" Yukino looked surprised, her small mouth slightly open. From the outside, there was no way to tell that the box contained the white beret. "Thanks for the notes, Yukino Shita-san, and for helping explain things every day." Yoru smiled awkwardly and scratched the back of his head. "What's inside?" Yukino glanced at the gift box, then at Yoru, but didn't reject it. "Open it and see for yourself. That's how gifts work." Yoru offered the box. "This the thing you were looking for Yuigahama for earlier?" Yukino tilted her head slightly as she took the gift, her tone indifferent. "More or less." Yoru nodded. "Would have been better if you brought San-san over so I could pet her." Yukino sighed quietly and opened the box. Deep down, she thought, compared to the gift, Yoru's San-san was more appealing. "I really miss her. Even if San-san were sick, it would be nice to see that little chubby cat." But Yukino would rather she stayed healthy. The gift inside caught her a bit off guard. "A hat? A white beret?" Yukino picked it up and studied it. In Japanese culture, it's considered polite to open gifts in front of the giver and give a compliment. "How is it?" Yoru couldn't help but feel a little nervous. "Kasumajoka Utaha like this beret too?" Yukino probably wouldn't think it looked bad. "It's nice. I really like it." Yukino nodded lightly and accepted the gift. "Didn't expect you to give me something like this, Kitakami-kun. It's a good surprise, thanks." She looked up and added, "As long as you like it." Yoru let out a breath of relief. "I'll get going now. Don't slack off these next few days." Yukino reminded him and then turned to leave. Watching her go, Yoru felt pretty good. "This is the first time I've gotten a gift." After Yukino left, her whole demeanor changed. A faint smile appeared on her lips. Of course, she didn't count the generic holiday gifts from suitors, relatives, or classmates where everyone got something. As for liking it, she really did. The white beret was beautiful and suited her. She planned to wear it. Since she'd already accepted it, why care who it was from? "Has Nei-san been waiting long?" Yukino stepped down the stairs from Shuchin's front gate, her icy blue eyes scanning for her family's car. Many parents had came to pick up their children. "Maybe it's in the back?" She slowly walked toward the parking spaces behind the school. In the driver's seat of a white Audi A4 sat Yukino Haruno's car. "Yukino's still not out?" "Mom probably has dinner ready already." Haruno rested her cheek on her hand, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror, bored. She and Yukino were sisters, not twins, but looked about 70 to 80% alike. Looking at Yukino often reminded her of herself. Sigh. "I just want Yukino to have a peaceful university life." Haruno suddenly sighed and shook her head. She was still a college student, but she had to juggle school and help their mother run the family's real estate business. The burden on her shoulders was too heavy. Things weren't supposed to turn out like this. Haruno's thoughts drifted to the painful past. In middle school, their father died in a car accident. Along with him, they lost a small-time political seat and the family's only male figure. The pillar of their household. Left behind were a beautiful mother and two daughters, vulnerable and died by wolves who claimed they wanted to take care of them. With the loss of their political background, their just stabilizing real estate business suffered too, falling into crisis. Years later, thanks to their mother's clever management and leveraging every connection from their retired grandfather, the company barely recovered. Even now, despite what outsiders say about the Yukino family's real estate developments, the truth is they only participate in joint ventures. The major profits go to others. They barely scrape the leftovers. The company isn't stable, nor is it collapsing. It walks a fine line. Since their father's death, their mother changed. She took full control over Yukino and Haruno's education, choices, and future. Simply put, their lives were now dictated entirely by their mother. Like noble children in ancient times. Haruno hoped her little sister wouldn't repeat her mistakes. She hoped Yukino could live her own life. A minute later, Yukino spotted her sister's car and approached. She opened the door. "Sorry for being late, Nei-san." Haruno instantly changed expressions. Faster than an opera face change. "Let's go." Haruno grinned cheerfully. As she started the car, she noticed the white beret Yukino was holding and casually asked, "A gift from a friend?" Yukino hesitated, then replied calmly, "Yeah. Was it from that Yuagahama girl? You know, the one with the bun on her head?" Haruno asked. "No." Yukino shook her head softly. "So Yukino made a new friend?" Haruno was curious and genuinely happy for her. If only she knew that Yukino's friend was Yoru. What kind of reaction would she have? Yoru walked a bit slower, standing by the trash bin as he finished his juice. After tossing the empty bottle, he left. Unbeknownst to him, someone was already watching him with wicked intent. That's him. The big fat guy, Gabriel's only human friend. They live nearby, go to school together, hang out. Must be close. He. A mere angel, once she meets the great Satania, she'll regret everything. Ahahahaha. Ahahaha. The idiotic Daemon cackled to herself, fantasizing about stepping on Gabriel and ascending to become the ruler of the demon realm. Below her, countless people cheered, worshipping and calling her name with fervent devotion, Kuramizawa Satanikia McDowell. Now that I have an evil plan, ahahaha. Satania stopped laughing, locked her eyes on Yoru, and just as she took a step to follow him, burst into laughter again. Her cute little fangs were fully exposed. After much brainstorming, Satania had finally come up with a perfect two-birds-one-stone evil plan. Now that she saw Yoru again, she could put it into action. Satania gleefully moved to catch up. "Satania, wait up. Don't walk so fast." Vignette's voice came from behind her. Satania turned, waved, and said a few words. But in those brief seconds, when she looked back again, Yoru was gone. Thankfully, her evil plan could wait for another time. Outside the school, the gates were nearly empty. Yoru didn't have lunch and didn't cook either. On the way, he grabbed a simple meal in the nearly deserted shopping district and replied to his parents' concerned messages. He dawdled for a while, rested after eating, then finally went to pay the bill. It wasn't expensive. Just under 1,000 yen for a plain set meal. By now, there weren't many people left on the street. Yoru scrolled through news on his phone as he silently walked toward the end of the shopping district. He was almost at the station. That's when he saw a girl wearing the middle school uniform of Shuchin Academy riding an old bike toward him. She had silver white hair and a cool, expressionless face. 2 heavy grocery bags hung from the bike's handlebars, filled to the brim with food. Stupid big bro. If you want that attendance bonus, just finish the student council work already instead of making your little sister run around for you. Seriously. Shirogane pedaled hard, but the 2 bags on the handlebars kept throwing off her balance. So hot. After this delivery, there are still 3 more. I'll finally get that full attendance bonus, right? She kept grumbling, but deep down, she didn't really mind. Her family wasn't well off. Her brother, Shirogane Miyuki, often worked part-time jobs to help with expenses. Sometimes, would help out by delivering newspapers. Since Shirogane was a student at Shuchin, he could only take part-time jobs near the school. As student council president, he was often busy and barely had time for himself. Recently, he'd started working for a delivery platform. Running errands, picking up and delivering items. The platform offered a bonus for perfect attendance. But with finals coming up, student council duties were piling up. Shirogane was worried he wouldn't have time to complete enough deliveries to earn the bonus. It was a pretty generous bonus, after all. Sook volunteered to help, braving the scorching midday sun to make deliveries. She was focused on the road when she suddenly turned her head toward the sidewalk. She was riding close to the inner side of the street to avoid the sun. That's when she saw a gross, fat otaku blocking her path. As her bike rolled forward, their eyes happened to meet. Flinched slightly, and her bike wobbled a bit, but not enough to lose control. She didn't notice anything unusual. Instead, she remembered a rumor from school. A gross, fat otaku from the high school division had allegedly stolen senior Kazumi-Joka-senpai's stockings and panties during the spring field trip. And had even drooled over her legs on the bus. Wasn't that him just now? He's been staring at me the whole time. As passed by Yoru, she didn't feel scared or uncomfortable. Just curious. Then the front wheel of her bike hit a small rock, and it jolted violently. She didn't think much of it, but the handlebars began to shake uncontrollably. Crap. By the time she realized what was happening, it was too late. She had lost control of the bike. The problem was those 2 heavy grocery bags. The momentum from their swinging made it impossible to stabilize. Yoru, still in disbelief that even a middle schooler knew about his reputation, stared as she looked directly at him. 3 seconds later, a loud metallic crash rang out behind him. The sound of a bike hitting the ground. PFFT. Yoru turned around and couldn't help but laugh. Had fallen squarely on her butt. The bike was on top of her legs, and the grocery bags had spilled their contents everywhere. The sight was kind of ridiculous. Just a moment ago, she was a cool, silver-haired beauty. The sound of laughter reached K's ears, and she instantly felt embarrassed. She turned to glare at Yoru. Her pale hand grabbed the bike and pushed hard. A tingling sensation shot through her elbow. She had no strength, and the movement caused pain in her tailbone and legs, making her wince involuntarily. Worse still, a fat otaku was nearby. Felt humiliated. She didn't dare look back again and clenched her teeth as she tried to get up once more. Still no luck. Ugh. She was frustrated, upset, and nearly in despair. Do you need help? Yoru had been planning to walk away, but seeing her struggle, he stopped. Even now, he didn't forget his place as a gross otaku, so he didn't go over immediately. If only he were handsome. If K rejected him, he'd take it as shyness or awkwardness and leave without a word. Helping someone in trouble wasn't that strange anyway. Come to think of it, he'd been running into a lot of pretty girls lately. First it was Akino's Hanami, now this silver-haired girl. Was this some kind of magical luck at work? Can you? Hesitated for a second, then looked at him for help. She wasn't the type to act delicate. Yeah. Yoru walked over without another word, grabbed the bike, lifted it, and set down the kickstand. Thanks. Thanked him while curiously looking him over. Just because there weren't many people around didn't mean there were none. She wasn't worried. Yoru made sure the bike was stable, nodded, and turned to leave. Wouldn't she pick up her groceries herself? Wait. Can you help me up too? Sorry to trouble you. Had tried to stand again, but the pain was still there, and she had no strength. She didn't want to sit on the ground for minutes or longer. It was too embarrassing. Yoru didn't say anything. He just took off his backpack and held it out to her. Stared in confusion, eyes full of questions. Grab the bag. I'll pull you up. Yoru explained with a sigh. Oh? Okay. Thought she looked ridiculous right now. Her ears turned a bit red as she grabbed the backpack with both hands. The next moment, a strong pull lifted her up in one go. Phew. Quickly grabbed her bike for support, let go of the bag, and started breathing heavily. She gave Yoru a grateful look. She had thought he'd grab her hand and pull her up. Yoru just gave a small nod and walked away. How strange. Frowned slightly and watched him until he disappeared, then slowly began cleaning up the mess. Determined to earn that platform bonus, she pushed on with her exhausting work. Shirogane finished his student council duties around 4 p.m. and finally came home. Damn it, cramps again. Shirogane took off his shoes and stepped into their shabby little apartment, grumbling. He soon noticed the cotton swabs with iodine and antiseptic in the trash and rushed into K's room in alarm. What the hell? You scared me. K was lying on her stomach, legs kicking lazily in the air as she read a book, and looked up annoyed. You're hurt. Are you okay? Shirogane asked anxiously. Idiot. Do I look hurt? Just a scrape. A little cut. K snapped without much warmth. I said. Shirogane didn't seem to hear. He instantly switched to naggy old man mode and started lecturing. Enough already. Stop talking. Covered her ears, annoyed. She hated being lectured by her brother. Eventually, Shirogane quieted down. K seemed to remember something and told him about Yoru. Him? Even if he helped you, just thank him and keep your distance. If you see him again, stay away. Shirogane remembered Yoru from last semester. They had shared a desk. He was just being cautious, giving his sister proper advice. Okay. K replied indifferently. This was the age of rebellion. Tell them no, and they'll do the opposite. Seeing her attitude, Shirogane started nagging again. The first day of exams began at the 9 a.m. The first exam began. For finals, Shuchin Academy had things well planned. What would usually be 2 days of exams was spread out over 4, to give students plenty of rest and help reduce pre-test anxiety and sleeplessness. Gabriel, Yoru, and Nanami walked together under the morning sun, heading to Shuchin. None of you are nervous? Nanami had gotten good rest, but couldn't help feeling a little anxious. Nope. Yoru and Gabriel replied in sync, almost too perfectly. Their eyes met in surprise. They had arrived quite early. An hour before the exam started. The three of them split up at the school gate to head to their own exam rooms. On the way, Yoru grabbed a juice and went straight to the exam room, since there was nowhere else to wait. All classrooms had been requisitioned. At the exam room entrance, Yoru went through a quick security check, a metal detector, a search of his pencil case, and a review of his test tools before he was allowed in. Once inside, if he left, he would have to be searched again to return. Very strict. The desks were spaced far apart. Yoru found a seat labeled with his name and sat down, glancing around. Is that him? Yoru and Tomoya both thought the same thing. Wasn't that the guy who jumped out at Akihabara before, accusing him of stalking Kazumi Jokayutaha? Did he have some connection with her? Yoru was the first to look away. Tomoya adjusted his glasses, thinking of something else. Yesterday, he had gone to visit Iriri, but she hadn't been home. Today, luck was on his side. He ran into her at the school gate and rushed over to say hi. But Iriri had deliberately avoided him like she was scared of something. She must be worried people will misunderstand if I talk to her at school. Typical Iriri. Tomoya thought casually, completely unaware that the cute childhood friend he treated like a treasure had already become something entirely different. This disgusting otaku sitting next to him, Tomoya was still quietly feeling smug, completely oblivious. If he wanted, all he had to do was nod. That perfect, elegant, cold, most popular beauty in the school would be his. Even Iriri, the cute and proud one, was an option. Unfortunately, Tomoya wasn't normal. He hadn't even held hands with either Kasumijuka or Iriri. Still, he felt smugly superior and quietly looked down on Yoru. If he ever found out the truth about Iriri, he'd probably cough up 3 liters of blood in rage. And Yoru didn't know Iriri like Tomoya, nor did he know how important that detail was. He didn't realize that the thing Iriri feared most was Tomoya finding out. Maybe, to keep it hidden, she'd be willing to do anything. Yoru had mind-reading powers, but he didn't use them recklessly. Still, maybe one day he'd find out. With a streak of lucky coincidences. While Tomoya was thinking about Iriri, so was Yoru. I wonder if Sawamore's here. It's finals. She probably is. I think her exam room is. Yoru started searching on his phone. The school forum had posted the full seating chart. She's in the 3rd year building? Yoru put his phone away and glanced at Tomoya. Their eyes met, and Yoru instantly saw the contempt and disdain in his gaze. What are you looking at me like that for? Yoru wasn't about to let it slide. He shot back immediately. He wasn't the same loser everyone used to push around anymore. You. Tomoya was startled, half standing to respond. What? Yoru casually clenched his massive fists. Tomoya froze, instantly glued to his seat. Yoru muttered a curse. Something he'd wanted to say back in Akihabara. He didn't bother hiding it. Tomoya heard every word. Anger flared inside him, but he didn't dare retaliate. He could only seethe silently, imagining Kasumijuka and Iriri both in love with him to boost his ego. Sooner or later, Yoru would get expelled from Shuchen. No need to get mad over a dead man walking. Yoru took another sip of juice and remembered that art book he had once picked up. He'd try to retrieve it over summer break when he had time. He didn't know who the artist was. It had been lost. But usually, an artist's style is distinct, especially a hentai artist's. Whether it's I fell in love with teacher-s sharp-eyed expressions, or Mizuryu's distorted faces. If he compared them, he might figure out who the artist was. Time passed. 2 proctors arrived. Everyone, including Yoru, turned in their phones. The exam began. The first subject was geography. What kind of climate does Japan have? A humid oceanic climate. Yoru answered questions while occasionally scratching his head in thought. Tomoya watched, once again looking down on him. And growing more hostile. TCH. This is all he can do. He had the nerve to steal Utaha Senpai's panties and stockings. As if any girl would like him. Disgusting. Tomoya's possessiveness kicked in. He saw Yoru as someone who had violated what was his. Kasumijuka Utaha. 70 minutes later, the test ended. There was a 15-minute break. Yoru didn't leave. He just laid his head on the desk. Next was world history, then he could go home. Even knowing he wasn't doing well, Yoru still gave it his all. Once the exam ended, he retrieved his phone and left the room. The 3rd year building was farther in. Yoru made his way there and ran into students leaving from that area. He pushed through the crowd. Finally, among the stream of students, he spotted those iconic golden twin tails. Iriri had already noticed him. He was hard to miss. Large and imposing. She shrank into the crowd in fear. Blame her looks. Too cute, too eye-catching, constantly drawing attention. Right now, Iriri wished she weren't so popular. Wherever she went, eyes followed. Yoru approached, eyes fixed on her, and subtly shot her a glance, signaling her to go elsewhere. Iriri's heart was in her throat. It was impossible not to notice. That look. She knew it. Yoru had used it during that game of King's Orders. What was he planning? He wouldn't dare. Disgusting, perverted foot freak. Die, you fat pig. Get hit by a truck and die. Iriri cursed him viciously in her heart, but still followed, mind in chaos. She was afraid Yoru was obsessed with her body and might. The worst part? He actually was thinking something along those lines. Chapter 77, You, what do you want now? Stop staring at me. You, if you touch me again, you're dead. No, let me go. After Yoru's signal, Iriri hesitated, memories of how cruelly he'd treated her flashing in her mind. In the end, she still chose to follow him. This was such an academy. Not her home. So while she felt scared, she wasn't too worried. She watched Yoru walk against the flow of students, heading deeper into the third-year building. Ayuri slowed her steps, taking a deep breath to calm herself. Her bottom line was simple: she didn't want Yoru to touch her again. Ever. If he's still fantasizing, then let's burn everything down together. For days now, Ayuri had lived on edge, constantly anxious that the disgusting fat otaku Yoru would bully her again. At the same time, she had mentally prepared herself for the worst, mutual destruction. If it came to it, she'd drag him down with her. Ayuri, didn't we finish the exam? Why are you heading back? A long-haired girl from the art club called out to her. I forgot something. Hee hee. Ayuri forced a smile, pretending everything was fine. On a normal day, some students might linger after school, but not today. It was the final exam day. Yoru had already made his way to the third floor. He stopped at the stairwell landing. Looking around, he saw the place was mostly empty. From downstairs, the sounds of chattering echoed up. Leaning against the wall with arms crossed, Yoru quietly gazed down the stairs. After waiting several dozen seconds, he finally saw Ayuri appear, looking both guarded and unwilling, stopping on the landing without climbing further. What do you want now? I'm warning you again. Don't even think about it. Ayuri looked up and glared at the disgusting fat otaku Yoru above, her voice full of accusation. She had even stopped drinking milk. It made her nauseous now. Was this guy going to bully her again? Would he dare? Her parents were returning from England next week. Yoru said nothing. He already activated his mind-reading ability and was eavesdropping on the high and mighty Ajao-sama's inner thoughts and emotional state. Good. This volcano named Ayuri, which could erupt at any moment, had entered a temporary dormant state. If luck held out, it might stay dormant forever. That way, there'd be no catastrophic eruption, no mutual destruction. He'd save his one-use time reversal trump card. Big win. You. Why aren't you saying anything? Ayuri raised her voice, seeing him spaced out. Oh, I'm just not used to this. The old Sawamura would have already called me a disgusting fat otaku and rolled her eyes at me. This is new. Yoru gave a small nod and smiled. You. Damn you. Ayuri flinched. Her sapphire eyes looked like they might burst into flames. She stomped hard on the ground, the sound echoing through the stairwell. If you dragged me up here just to mock me, then screw you. Didn't you want me to call you disgusting? You're a filthy fat otaku pervert degenerate mangy mutsick freak, go to hell you garbage. Her face flushed red with shame and anger as she unleashed the insults like a rapid-fire barrage, not even pausing to breathe. From above, Yoru looked down at her, unfazed. He simply raised an eyebrow. Forget it. I just wanted to ask when you're going to clear things up with Kasumijoka Utaha. His gaze was calm, like still water. Ayuri's full-powered counterattack had landed like a punch on cotton. Utterly ineffective. What are you so impatient for? Ayuri glared at Yoru, her face reddening further out of anger. Even so, you had to admit. Her face was seriously cute. That fair skin and tsundere scowl. Ayuri was the embodiment of cuteness. It's been days already. Yoru countered. I just got back to school. What's the rush? I'll explain it, okay? Stop pushing me. The proud Ajao-sama was thoroughly annoyed. She threw him a final glare and stormed off. Damn it, bastard, jerk. It's all his fault, this morning with Aki. As Ayuri rushed downstairs, she remembered how unprepared she'd been earlier to face Tomoya. When he approached her, she had immediately panicked and ducked away. Her first instinct wasn't joy. It was fear and anxiety. Even now, Ayuri's thoughts were a mess. She had no idea what to do. She couldn't face her childhood friend, whom she liked, and didn't know how to come clean to Kasumijoka Utaha. She just hadn't figured it out yet. Almost leaping her way down the stairs, Ayuri reached the bottom. She placed her soft little hands on the white wall, bent slightly, and looked at the tips of her brown leather shoes. Grievance surged through her. Her nose tingled, and before she could stop herself, she began to cry. A tear slowly slid from the corner of her eye. Yoru thought it over. What Ayuri said actually made sense. He wasn't in that much of a hurry anyway. Finals were still going on, and summer break was just around the corner. After using the restroom in the building, he finally left. On the way out, he grabbed another juice and strolled out without urgency. At the school gate, Satania was pacing around, bored, eyes fixed on the school entrance. Why haven't I seen him yet? Don't tell me he already left. No, I came out really fast. He must still be inside. She mumbled as she waited, eager to see Yoru come out. He. Her wicked little plan was to turn Yoru, the human, into her most loyal demon servant. All it would take was one command: kneel down and lick properly. And Yoru would drop all dignity, pledging himself to her, licking her filthy feet like a groveling mutt. The angel Gabriel would have no choice but to silently watch her best friend fall, powerless to stop it. In Satania's mind, kneeling and licking feet was the ultimate display of a lowly slave pleasing their master. Another despicable angel, Raphael, had once even made her lick her feet while sitting on a table. Yahahaha, waka kaka. Satania trembled with excitement at her fantasy. Not only would she land a personal minion, but Gabriel would suffer emotional damage too. What a perfect plan. Step 1. Get close to Yoru and slowly replace Gabriel as the closest friend in his heart. Ha 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 ha. Yoru walked out of the third-year building. As he turned a corner, he spotted a familiar figure up ahead. Fujiwara Chika? He felt a small wave of surprise and joy and wanted to go say hello. He sped up a few steps, then slowed again. Would it scare her if he approached so suddenly? They weren't really close. What kind of gift would be appropriate to thank her? He had no clue. Yumiko had once suggested high-end skincare products, but Fujiwara wasn't going home. She was heading toward the student council, probably mulling over the exam questions. It seemed one of them had stumped her. Yoru hesitated, choosing instead to follow from a distance. He didn't leave, but he didn't catch up either. Fujiwara had no idea she was being followed. She arrived at a small European-style building and went inside. Yoru finally stopped and sighed quietly. Forget it. This wasn't the right opportunity. She'd gone to the student council. As he turned to leave, he nearly had a heart attack. When a person is deeply focused and suddenly startled, the shock can trigger cardiac issues. Rare, but not unheard of. Dressed in a black Shuchin uniform, with her hair tied behind her head with a red ribbon ringed in black, her expression cold. Shinomiya Kaguya. He had no idea when she got there, but she was standing just 2 to 3 meters behind him. You've been following Secretary Fujiwara? Her ruby red eyes radiated an overwhelming, invisible pressure. Despite her petite frame, seemingly not much different from Mariri's, Shinomiya Kaguya, standing before Yoru, carried a presence far more imposing. She was the sole heiress of the Shinomiya family, one of Japan's 4 major zaibatsu, arguably the most powerful among them. Truly extraordinary. You're not saying anything? I saw everything. Kaguya's expression grew even colder, like ice that had formed over millennia. Whenever facing someone she disliked, the Ice Princess Kaguya emerged once again. I had something to discuss with her. I don't think it concerns you. Yoru took a deep breath. His stirred emotions gradually calmed down. The most equal thing in the world is that everyone has just one life. But he was different. As long as his death wasn't from old age. Whether it was a car accident, poisoning, sudden illness, anything. His ability would activate passively, letting him rewind time to any point within the past month. In other words, he had 2 lives. You had something to discuss with a young lady of the Fujiwara family? You were stalking her, weren't you? The chill in Kaguya's tone cut through the heat of a summer noon. Distrust was written all over her face. You can ask her yourself. There's no need for stalking. I was just hesitating whether or not to say hi. You really think too highly of yourself. Yoru glanced at the Shinomiya heiress and responded flatly. He wasn't saying it for Kaguya's sake. He was afraid she'd go tell Fujiwara and create a misunderstanding. One was an enemy. The other, a benefactor. The old him would have been tongue-tied, seen as a stalker. Then I'll ask Secretary Fujiwara myself. With that, Kaguya withdrew her cold demeanor and walked off to the side. From beginning to end, there hadn't been a single trace of disgust or disdain in her eyes toward Yoru. But in truth, the opposite was true. The calmer and more composed she seemed, the more she looked down on him. Like smiling from extreme anger, a pride that ran infinitely deep. Shinomiya Kaguya. Only after she walked away did Yoru clench his fists tightly and grit his teeth to force out her name. He didn't yet have the strength to exact revenge on her. One at a time. Kasumijoka Utaha's golden treasure chest hadn't been opened yet. And who knew when Ariri would act? Summer vacation was just around the corner. There was no use dreaming big. He had to focus on what was right in front of him. Maybe the next golden chest would give him what he needed for revenge. By his count, he opened Ariri's chest early last Saturday. So it had only been 6 full days. Yoru didn't believe that even if the misunderstanding were cleared, Kaguya would realize her mistake and apologize to him. Let alone now, after things had gotten even more unpleasant. Phew. He let out a quiet breath and pushed the matter to the back of his mind for now, heading home from Shuchin. Inside the student council room. Only Ishigami Yu, Fujiwara Chika, and Shinomiya Kaguya were present. Secretary Fujiwara. Kaguya gently pushed open the door with her usual calm and graceful smile. You'd never guess how cold she'd been just moments ago. Huh? What is it? Fujiwara looked up, her face lighting up with her trademark smile. You were being followed just now. By Kitakami. Do you remember? Kitakami? Yeah, I know him. He followed me? Fujiwara's eyes filled with surprise. I saw him. He made an excuse about needing to talk to you and hesitated before coming over. Kaguya looked directly into Fujiwara's eyes. Oh, so that's what happened. Fujiwara smiled as if it made perfect sense and didn't seem to mind at all. Huh? Is that true? Kaguya looked curiously at her only friend. Yeah. It's fine. Fujiwara, with her big heart, didn't care at all. She probably already guessed that Yoru just wanted to thank her. Elsewhere, Yoru had walked some distance from the school gate when hurried footsteps approached from behind. Hey! Wait up! Satania came running quickly, waving at him. Who are you? Yoru looked at her, not recognizing her at all. Previously, when he'd gone out with Gabriel and Vignette, he hadn't seen Satania. He had no idea who she was. I'm Satania. You're Gabriel's friend, right? I saw you two walking to school together. Despite running a long distance, Satania wasn't even winded. Clearly, she was athletic. Yeah. Nice to meet you, I'm Yoru Kitakami. Remembering the name, Yoru assumed she was just here to ask about Gabriel. Humphrey, step 1, success. Stupid human. Bet he thought I came over to say hi. Satania smirked inwardly and asked, where's Gabriel? Did you see her today? We came to school together this morning. You guys in first year have different exam times than us, so she probably went home already. Yoru thought for a moment. Exams? TCH, we don't care about those. Satania scoffed with classic Chune demon flair. Still, she answered seriously. She didn't want to be punished by that mean bald math teacher again. Why are you all like this? On the way to the station, Yoru and Satania chatted casually. Back home, with nothing to do, Yoru rolled out his yoga mat for a bit. The second day of final exams. That afternoon, the summer sun scorched the earth. Yoru, Gabriel, and Nanami arrived early. At the school gate, the three went their separate ways. There was still an hour and a half before the exams started. Yoru didn't want to sweat under the sun and carry that into the exam room. He headed for a vending machine, lucking out with a freshly restocked can of black coffee. He popped the tab, took a small sip, and wandered aimlessly around Shuchen. The proctor wouldn't arrive until an hour before the test. The classroom was still locked. A few other students had shown up, but not many. After a bit of walking, Yoru reached a secluded flower bed near the campus wall. It was a large circular planter filled with tiny yellow, white, and red flowers, densely packed. In the shade, Yoru sat on the edge of the flower bed, the wall before him, sipping his coffee as he pulled out his phone. He scrolled through the news and idly opened Amazon. Based on his browsing habits, the homepage recommended him a manga. The story was about a useless protagonist who never confessed to the girl he liked, only for her to be snatched by a fat otaku. Along with his cute little sister. Why do I keep getting recommended these? Is this some kind of message? It's not like anyone likes me. Probably that damn fat otaku's story instead. Yoru muttered as he sipped more coffee. Just then, from the other side of the flower bed, two female voices approached, laughing as they talked. San-san, you're teasing me again. Hanami, I'm just jealous. I want to be that big too. It's too much. I really don't like it. Their voices came clearly from the other side of the flower bed. They sat down on the opposite edge. The plants was so tall and thick with flowers that Yoru was completely hidden. The girls had no idea anyone was there, openly chatting about extremely private girl talk. It's them. Yoru blinked for a moment before realizing. San-san. Wasn't that the name of his cat? The name was the same. It was that black-haired, red-eyed girl with twin tails flipped in reverse. Her best friend was Ikanos Hanami. That day, after leaving Ariri's house and wandering aimlessly, she happened to find her lost little sister. That's how they met. I shouldn't go out. Better not make any noise either, or they'll realize I'm here. Yoru lowered the volume on his phone's ringtone and thought silently. It would be too awkward to go out there. He had came to this flower bed first. It wasn't eavesdropping. He didn't even want to listen. But he was so close. Hee, Hanami, I think yours got a little bigger again. I heard girls can still develop in college. I don't want that. It's too hot in summer, I sweat a lot. And it's hard to dress in winter. So uncomfortable. People always stare, whether they're guys or girls. I hate that kind of look. So many people are jealous of you, though. Don't be upset. Take this. Tokizaki Kurumi comforted Ikanos Hanami and suddenly reached out to grab her best friend. Don't tickle me, Kurumi, no. Akino's Hanami squirmed. Her words were interrupted with laughter, slightly breathless. On the other side of the flower bed, Yaru's face was stiff. So girls talk about this kind of stuff in private? They even start play fighting? There was no need to imagine. Just hearing their cute laughter constantly drifting over was enough to guess what kind of sweet and intimate scene was happening on the other side. He did his best to stay silent. After a short while, the scuffle between Tokaizaki Kurumi and Akino's Hanami ended, and they went back to chatting. Yoru pulled out his phone. There was still an hour before the exam started. Phew. Still early. He exhaled softly with mild frustration. If it were someone else in his position, they'd probably be ecstatic. But he wasn't really interested. I heard from a girl in the next class that not all boys are into boobs. More of them are into feet. Ugh. That's gross. Feet are so dirty. Right, Kurumi? I think so too. It's perverted. Really gross. Immediately, Yaru's ears perked up and twitched slightly. Time passed. 10 or so minutes later, things finally quieted down. Yoru gently twisted his waist and glanced back. He couldn't see what was happening on the other side. They should be gone by now. Muttering to himself, Yaru waited a little longer until he was almost certain that Tokaizaki Kurumi and Akino's Hanami had left. Only then did he stand up. It had been almost 20 minutes without making a sound. Time to head to the exam hall anyway. Yoru stretched lazily and stepped out from the other side of the flower bed. Different positions gave different perspectives. From Tokaizaki Kurumi's point of view, she was the first to notice Yoru suddenly stepping out. Her mouth opened involuntarily, letting out a sound. The next moment, Yoru heard it, and his brain responded. He turned his head. But his thoughts were still stuck in the previous second. Their eyes met. Akino's was half a beat slow. She glanced at Tokaizaki Kurumi before finally seeing Yoru. Ah! Kurumi let out a sharp cry, her stunned eyes instantly shifting to shy and panicked as she looked at Akino's Hanami for help. And no. It's just. I came here first. You two came after. I wasn't eavesdropping on purpose. Yoru sensed trouble but remained calm and immediately explained. His mood and nerves had long been hardened through countless trials. He couldn't say he was unshakable like a mountain, but he was definitely composed. Maybe he should thank Ariri for that? Kitakami? Akino's was stunned. Why was Yoru in such a secluded place? But unless he had climbed the outer wall to sneak into this hidden corner of the flower bed, he really had arrived first. It wasn't eavesdropping at all. The Shuchin walls weren't easy to climb, and Yoru wasn't the type to do that. So, Akino's felt deeply embarrassed and regretful as she looked toward Kurumi. Their eyes met. I'm going now. The best way to handle this was not to talk about it and leave immediately. Yoru left those words and walked away. After he left, Kurumi and Akino's looked at each other and began blaming one another. This is all your fault, Kurumi. You brought up my boobs and even attacked me. You were the one who brought up feet. We're doomed. What if he heard everything? Those were such private topics. What if he spreads it? Kurumi clutched her head, worried. No way. Akino's froze. That hadn't occurred to her at all. Hanami, what if everything we said was recorded? Kurumi swallowed hard and looked at Akino's with concern. And no way. I don't think Kitakami is that kind of person. Akino's forced a smile, but her expression wasn't good either. But what if? Wasn't he the one who stole Kasamijoka Utaha-senpai's stockings and panties? You're so pretty, Hanami, and your boobs are huge. What if he tries to blackmail you? Kurumi's gaze involuntarily dropped to Akino's chest. She didn't have the same filter as Hanami and simply assumed based on school rumors. And no. Don't scare me, Kurumi. Akino's was truly frightened. My, Hanami, you're just too kind. Kurumi's trick had succeeded, and she laughed quietly behind her hand. Of course, the chance of something like that actually happening was very low. But no one could guarantee it wouldn't happen, right? You started it by talking about me first. Akino's pouted and talked back. They were close and didn't really get angry at each other. Yaru left, used the restroom, and headed to the exam hall. That afternoon, the subjects were Japanese and math. At 5:00 p.m. the exams ended. Yoru didn't rush to hand in his papers. He took his time packing up. Only after most people had left the classroom did he head out. By then, in the late afternoon, the sunlight had grown much gentler. Outside Shuchin's gate, many luxury cars were parked waiting to pick up students. Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, Maybachs, Mercedes S-Class, Porsches. It looked like a cabbage market of luxury vehicles. So rich. Damn this money and looks-obsessed society. Yoru glanced at the lineup of fancy cars and walked toward the bus stop at the end of the shopping street. Huh? What a coincidence. After walking a short distance, Yoru ran into Satania and greeted her. Oh, what a coincidence. Hee hee. Satania blinked her big eyes innocently. She looked pure and harmless, though she was secretly laughing inside. Ananana. Angel Gabriel, your dear friend is about to become the first minion of me, Satania, the future great demon lord. Such a tiny, insignificant human. Ahahaha. Chayunabiu? Demon? Yoru kept a bit of distance from Satania and muttered quietly. Satania liked talking to herself. It was a habit they somewhat shared. But Yoru only did that when no one else was around. They chatted casually. Though they weren't close, they parted ways at the bus station. He scanned his transit card and entered the station. Yoru arrived at the station platform and silently waited for the train. Hey, Kitakami-kun. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind him. Yukino Shita. Yukino was wearing the Shuchin uniform, but what stood out was the white beret on her head. The one Yoru had given her. Yukino Shita-san. Yoru turned around. Instead of focusing on the beautiful girl's face, his eyes were drawn to the top of her head. I think it's pretty nice. It was sunny this afternoon, so I decided to wear it. Yukino spoke softly. The designer from the brand wasn't stupid. Choosing to release a white beret in summer obviously accounted for both sun protection and breathability. It'd look even better with a different outfit. Yoru nodded politely. How'd you do on the exam? Were there any questions you struggled with? Yukino didn't forget the main reason she'd stopped Yoru. She had been entrusted by Hiratsuka-sensei to help Yoru improve his grades and avoid being expelled from Shuchin. What she didn't know was that he no longer cared about that at all. Some of the math filled in the blanks. And as Yoru was replying, the train arrived. He paused and entered the train car with her. They sat fairly close. The car wasn't crowded. Yoru spoke quietly to avoid disturbing others. Yukino stared blankly at the floor, clearly deep in thought, focusing on what he was saying. Inside the moving train, she suddenly began mentally grading his answers. A few minutes before the next stop, Yukino gave a number. 40. What? Yoru had been talking non-stop and had no idea what she was doing. Based on your answers, I estimate your math score is around 40. Do you think that's progress? Yukino stood up and held the vertical handrail, preparing to get off. I used to only get around 30 in math. I've been gone for over a month, so 40 is definitely an improvement. Yoru was a little pleased. The train began to announce the upcoming stop. Do you live near here? Yoru asked casually. Yeah, and you live not too far either, right? The pet clinic where I work is nearby, you could come by. Yukino continued the conversation, which was rare for her. I live one stop away. Yoru replied. How's San-san? Yukino, who had been staring out the window, turned back. Yoru then remembered that the girl in front of him was a hardcore cat lover. Whenever they were alone, she would always ask about his cat San-san. Yoru met Yukino's slightly expectant eyes and tested the waters. Want to come to my place and see her? I do. Yukino nodded without much hesitation. Huh? Now it was Yoru's turn to be surprised. You're not scared? You trust me already? I practice Aikido. Yukino saw the shift in Yoru's expression and added, even if you knew Jeet Kune Do or had supernatural powers, if you're attacked by a grown man, the best move is to run, not fight. Unless you're trained in American Aikido and happen to have a gun. Yoru shrugged, trying to advise her. Some girls think a bit of martial arts training makes them safe from bad guys. Even Mike Tyson would think twice if faced with a knife-wielding man. Unbelievable. The famously cool and icy Yukino Shita. Yukino actually agreed to come to my apartment alone after just one invitation? If I said that out loud, people would think I was some delusional, disgusting loser. Yoru followed Yukino up the stairs step by step. What she didn't show was how much she had been dying to pet his fat cat San-san again. When they reached the second floor, Yoru took out his keys and unlocked the apartment. There are slippers at the door. They're clean and rarely used. But you don't have to wear them if you don't want to. Yoru opened the door and said this to Yukino, who had a calm expression. I know. Don't mind me. I'm just here to see the cat. Yukino was actually hoping Yoru would leave her alone with San-san. As she stepped into the entrance, she looked around curiously at Yoru's place. Then she braced one hand on the wall and gently nudged off her shoes with the other. Her long legs wrapped in black over-the-knee socks naturally drew Yoru's eyes. With her small feet touching the cool, clean entryway tiles, Yukino didn't wear slippers at home unless it was a particularly cold winter. Meow meow. From the couch, San-san called out and bolted toward them. In a flash of fluffy black, she appeared at Yoru's feet. Meow meow. Meow. San-san was hungry and tugged lightly on Yoru's pants with her paw, acting cute. She was likely a stray cat abandoned by humans but had clearly been cared for before. She knew how to win affection. Sit for a bit. I'll get you some fruit and drinks. Yoru squatted and gave Sansan a good rub before calling back to Yukino. Okay, go ahead. Yukino's heart was already focused on Sansan. With years of experience working at a pet clinic, she could tell from one look that Sansan was very well cared for. Her fur was shiny and smooth. She looked full of energy. Meow? Sansan finally noticed Yukino and stared at her warily. Meow meow. Yukino smiled warmly. Her eyes were filled with affection for the cat. She squatted down slowly and extended a hand. If Sansan came over to rub against her, it meant she felt safe. Safe enough to be touched. If not, she might get scratched. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Yoru was rinsing fruit and putting it on a plate, along with 2 bottles of juice. When he came back, Yukino was already sitting on the small couch, holding Sansan. Kitakami-kun, is that why you named her Sansan? Yukino seemed satisfied after getting her cat fix. She lifted Sansan slightly to show the little name tag on her collar. Yoru had never removed it. Yeah, it had a 3 on it. I figured it might be her name. Plus, I found her on a Wednesday. Yoru explained. I think that tag probably belonged to her owner, not the cat. Yukino gently pulled out the tag from Sansan's thick fur and glanced at it. It was an educated guess based on her experience. Is that so? I guess it doesn't really matter. Yoru scratched his head. Do you have any canned cat food? Yukino suddenly asked, looking up at Yoru. Yeah. Yoru nodded, confused. I want to trim some of her fur. It's getting hot, and she'll be more comfortable. Yukino explained. Ah, sure. You're going to use the cat food to distract her? Yoru nodded again and went to the kitchen to grab it. Meow meow? Sansan rolled over on Yukino-shita's lap, her amber eyes darting around with curiosity. In the kitchen, as soon as Yoru opened the can. Click. Sansan perked up instantly, her eyes wide as she turned toward the kitchen. Hee hee, you're such a little glutton. Yukino chuckled genuinely. Next, Yoru used canned cat food to appease Sansan and let her eat while Yukino gently combed and trimmed her fur. They were close enough that Yoru could smell her light fragrance. It was nearly dark by the time Yukino reluctantly left. Unfortunately, her high-rise apartment didn't allow pets. Yoru walked her out and grabbed dinner on the way. Time flew by, and the exams ended. 4 days later, students returned to school for a final term and assembly. After that, it was summer vacation. That morning, Yoru had just finished his cardio workout and was washing off his sweat. Looking at himself in the full-length mirror, he was pleasantly surprised. Thanks to the tenfold reward from his hard work, in just over 2 weeks, he had been consistently doing cardio to lose weight. Compared to the school outing, his appearance had changed significantly. The most obvious change? He could barely see his toes now when he looked down. Time to weigh in. Yoru had been resisting the urge to weigh himself because he didn't want to slack off under the illusion of progress from his tenfold buff. Taking a deep breath, he quickly dried off and struggled into his underwear. Technically, his clothes should have become looser now that he'd slimmed down. Stepping out of the shower with excitement, Yoru closed his eyes and stepped onto the electronic scale. Back during the school outing, he had weighed nearly 300 pounds. After that, he lost about 30 pounds. During his hospital stay, he didn't diet aggressively but stuck to low-fat meals, losing another 5 or 6 pounds. Altogether, he had lost 40 pounds. Still, that left him at 260 pounds. Very overweight. So, what about now? Kua. Yoru's body trembled nervously, his breath grew heavier, and all he could hear in his ears was the rapid beating of his heart. He opened his eyes. 110 kilograms. 220 pounds. Son of a. Yoru shouted in excitement. In just over 2 weeks, he had lost 40 pounds. Could you even imagine that kind of terrifying weight loss speed? Especially for a boy with a genetically overweight-prone body. It wasn't something ordinary people could compare to. You couldn't judge Yoru's progress using normal human standards. The mysteries of human genetics. What we understand is only a drop in the ocean. Even with his dad Kitakami Toyotani's strict diet and workout plan, a regular person would already have ABS. Yet even his dad, who had gastric surgery, still had a bit of chub. 220 now. 180 in another half month. Then 140 in the next. That's an average week for a high schooler. Just 1 more month, and I'll finally see what I look like slimmed down. Yoru stepped off the scale, muttering to himself and bursting into the shower again. He slapped his face and body repeatedly with his hands, checking himself over. Alright, still obese. Moderate to severe obesity. Summer break was about a month and a half. Even if it got harder to lose weight later, he still had buffer time. He could make it. Get thinner, get thinner. Woo. Yoru no longer held back his excitement. He shouted freely, jumped around, waved his arms, and danced like a maniac. Eventually, when he could barely jump anymore and his lungs ached, he stopped. He looked at his reflection in the mirror and tugged hard at the soft fat on his pale cheeks. He was filled with anticipation, longing, and curiosity. What would his slimmer self look like? And with this new look, returning to school after summer vacation and clearing his name as the so-called thief who stole Kasamijoka Utaha's stockings and underwear. I wonder what Hiratsuka-sensei, Yuki Noshita, and Uegahama would think when they see the new me at the service club. Would they even recognize me? Yoru couldn't help but imagine their reactions after a month and a half. What kind of expressions would they make? How would their attitude toward him change? And Sawamura. Maybe next time she won't call me a disgusting fat loser. She might just call me a disgusting foot freak instead. Yoru took deep breaths to calm himself. Don't rush. You're not slim yet. Summer break would go by fast. He kept up his discipline and ate breakfast. Then, together with Gabriel, who had dark circles under her eyes, and Nanami, who was browsing job listings on her phone, they headed to the station. Aoyama-san, can you tell I've lost a lot of weight? While queuing up to enter, Yoru found an opening and asked Nanami. Huh? Yeah, of course. I've known for a while that you've been dieting lately. The weight loss is really noticeable. Nanami gave him a once-over, but didn't scrutinize too much. Losing 80 pounds created a dramatic change. After all, she only weighed about 100 pounds herself. Ho. Ho. Yoru nodded silently and let out 2 heavy breaths through his nose. That feeling of being acknowledged. He felt incredibly fulfilled, even more than when imagining getting revenge on Sawamura. Seemed like anyone who wasn't blind could tell he was losing weight. They arrived at school around 9 a.m. On the way to his classroom, Yoru instinctively looked toward Ariri as he entered through the back door. Summer vacation was right around the corner. The mood in class was cheerful and relaxed, nothing like the tension before exams. Back in his seat, Yoru listened for a while. Half the class was talking about their grades, the other half about their upcoming vacation trips. Speaking of grades, the school forum should have posted them. Yoru pulled his phone from a small pouch and browsed the school forum. In many countries, even during normal exams, actual scores aren't published. Only students know their own results. Public records just show AE rankings. Yoru quickly found his math score. 37. Pretty close to Yuki Noshita's estimate. He had improved. Yoru chuckled quietly. A little while later, Hiratsuka-sensei entered and took control of the room. The classroom instantly quieted down. As she stood at the podium, giving a long list of reminders for summer break, Yoru's thoughts drifted again. What should I get her? I really have no clue. Skincare products. Yoru glanced sideways at Yumiko, who was messing with her phone. After about 10 minutes, the students followed Hiratsuka out and headed to the main auditorium. They sat down in their usual spots. After waiting a while, Shuchin's principal, Adolphe, came on stage and gave a speech, encouraging both students and teachers. He talked about the changes at Shuchin this semester. In reality, the true power behind Shuchin was the Shinomiya conglomerate. Yoru listened absent-mindedly, his mind wandering far away. Then the student council president gave a short speech summarizing the semester. Afterward, commendations began for outstanding students in Shuchin's high school division. Were those awards useful? Actually, yes. Especially if you didn't plan to continue to Shuchin's affiliated university or the Imperial Institute of Technology. They were useful for applying to places like the University of Tokyo, Kyoto University, and Chiba University. All top-tier schools in Japan. The awards were handed out by Student Council Secretary Fujiwara Chika. The projection screen displayed a short video, solemn music played. First-year students. Second year, tied for first, Yuki Noshita Yukino and Shirogane Miyuki. Second place, Shinomiya Kaguya. Yoru, who had been on the verge of dozing off, suddenly stood up straight. He stared at the stage, at the figures under the spotlight. Congrats, President. Kaguya stood beside Shirogane, smiling as she congratulated him. Thanks, Shinomiya. But I tied again with Yuki Noshita Yukino. Same score. Shirogane replied as he walked up to the stage, speaking to Kaguya behind him. Though Kaguya wore a soft smile, deep down she was far from satisfied. She had been outdone by the president once again. Yukino came up from the other side, stepping onto the stage with a third-place student. Fujiwara awarded the 4 students their gold, silver, and bronze Shuchin badges. It was all very ceremonial, the kind of thing that made students grow fast. Afterward, ranks 3 to 20 were announced. Students who also did well. Yoru heard familiar names. Nanami and a male student tied for 13th place. Yumiko, chewing gum lazily, blew a bubble and glanced at Yoru beside her. A few minutes later, thunderous applause broke out. Third years, first place, Koyasu Tsubaime. Second place, Kasumijoka Utaha. As Fujiwara's voice fell, the third-year section burst into murmurs. Everyone turned toward the two students seated at the very front of a particular class. Second place? Utaha. Tsubaime, who took first place, was more shocked than Kasumijoka herself. Ever since first year, Utaha had always held the top spot in every exam. Every single time. At most, she had tied once or twice. Some things threw me off. This whole semester's been rough. Congrats, though. Utaha spoke sincerely, as if she had long expected this outcome, offering heartfelt congratulations to Tsubaime. Was it the stalker issue? Tsubaime asked with concern. Her relationship with Utaha was always pretty good. Not quite best friends, but definitely close. Yeah. And my light novel work hasn't been going well either. The latest volume didn't get much of a reaction. Utaha forced a smile and stood, pulling Tsubaime with her to go on stage. Two beautiful girls, both excellent in grades and character. When they stepped into the spotlight, the first and second year students below erupted into excited chatter. Koyasu-senpai is so beautiful. Kasumijoka-senpai is even better. I love her. If only she were my girlfriend. You're dreaming. You think she'd look at you? Baka. Senpai, please go out with me. The auditorium instantly grew chaotic with cheers and screams the moment Utaha and Tsubaime took the stage. Many of those voices came from the sons of company presidents, club leaders, bankers. Young men from privileged backgrounds. Any one of them, taken out into the world, would be envied and admired for their elite upbringing. Ordinary people could only look up to them. Hey. In a corner, Tomoyaki pushed up his glasses, feeling smug. These people could only look. They'd never get Kasumijoka Utaha. Because she liked him. Tomoya was confident. Utaha would only fall for someone like him, just like Ariri. Good-looking guys didn't interest them. Even guys from wealthy backgrounds couldn't win her over. Would some fat loser be able to? Tomoya suddenly thought of Yoru and sneered. Kasumijoka Utaha. Yoru leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. The best candidate to open the next golden treasure chest. Without a doubt, it had to be her. Shinomiya Kaguya? No way. Hayasaka I? Not close enough. No chance. Garasumifo? A teacher. Not appropriate. No chance. But Utaha, who misunderstood him and even tried to have him expelled. She was perfect? Open the treasure chest first, then get revenge. That was the best plan. I'll focus on losing weight during summer break first. Yoru sighed and looked away. Hey. Suddenly, Yumiko spoke up beside him. Yoru glanced at her in confusion. Got any small bills or coins? I only have large bills, and it's a hassle to use them. She was going out later, and big bills weren't convenient. Yoru nodded lightly, took out his wallet from his pouch, and started rummaging. While grabbing coins, a signed beach photo of Sakurajima Mai in a swimsuit accidentally fell out along with his bank card. Hold on. Yoru bent down first to pick up Mai's signed photo, then the coins. Yumiko stared at him, curious why he had a beach photo tucked in his wallet. And why he picked that up first. What's that photo? She asked. Oh, it's a signed photo of Sakurajima Mai. Yoru scooped up the coins and bills. Who? Yumiko clearly froze for a moment. A signed gravure photo? She didn't even see a signature or a person. Just a bluish ocean in the background? A celebrity gravure photo where the star doesn't even appear? Also, who the heck was Sakurajima Mai? Yumiko usually kept up with celebrities, but she had no idea. Some washed-up, unknown idol, probably. Yoru glanced at the lightly dressed Mai in the photo, then tucked it back into his wallet. Yumiko made a couple of acknowledging noises, exchanged the money, then searched on her phone. There were no matching search results. Which meant this person had zero fame. Might not even exist. What the hell? Yumiko lost interest quickly. Chapter 78, finally, after a series of official remarks from Student Council Secretary Fujiwara Chika, the term and awards assembly came to a close. Starting with the first years, the students gradually began to leave the auditorium. Yoru didn't rush. He quietly leaned back in his seat and waited for the crowd to thin out. 10 minutes passed. Yumiko got up, but Yoru didn't move. He waited until the room was nearly empty before finally standing, surveying the Shuchin student council members on stage from above. By the time he left, it was noon. The scorching sun beat down on the ground, and even the breeze carried heat. For a brief moment, Yoru felt a strange sense of déjà vu. Like he had seen this scene before. He was sure of it. But when he tried to recall the details, they slipped away. Ho! He exhaled deeply, then slowly walked away from Shuchin. He made his way out of the school gate, heading toward the station at the far end of the shopping district. His summer plans were already clear. Study. Lose weight. Maybe take on a part-time job to kill some boredom. A month and a half. I'll definitely slim down. Yoru kept his eyes forward, thoughts firm. Before long, he passed by a cafe under renovation and ran into Yuagahama. She was just about to push the door open. Yuagahama-san. Yoru greeted her and glanced at the inside of the cafe. Have a nice summer, Kitakami-kun. Yuagahama seemed to be in a hurry and didn't stay. She went straight in after greeting him. Yoru nodded. Just a random encounter. Nothing more than a simple hello. Mom. Yuagahama stepped into the cluttered cafe still under renovation and called out. Ahaha, you is home? From the kitchen, a cheerful voice responded. A woman with orange hair tied back, wearing a pink apron. Yuagahama's mother. Looking closely, she resembled Yua quite a bit, but was even more beautiful. Youthful and mature at the same time, with a full figure. Like a perfectly ripe, juicy peach. She was in the middle of cooking and didn't come out. Are you making lunch? Yuagahama asked as she walked toward the kitchen. Yeah, there's a batch of renovation materials being delivered this afternoon. Let's just have something simple for lunch. We'll treat our Yua properly tonight. Yuagahama's mother, Yuagahama Yi, glanced back at the doorway. She had been so busy lately that she hadn't been able to take care of her daughter during this crucial time before final exams. She felt a little guilty about it. Maybe she should hire a worker to help out? Yua had already appeared at the kitchen door. The conditions inside were rather rough. The walls weren't even painted, and the water pipes were exposed. Don't come in yet, it's pretty dirty inside. Yi quickly waved her hand at Yua. Okay. Yua just nodded and stepped away. Standing in the dusty, muddy cafe where it was hard to find a place to stand, Yua let out a sigh. Then she took out her phone and sent a message to Yumeko. Yumeko, I'll be helping my mom with the cafe renovation over the next 2 weeks, so I won't be going out with you guys, got it? Good luck, Yumeko replied almost instantly. Yua quietly put her phone away. There was no helping it. It was just her and her mother at home. Her father had divorced her mom back when she was in elementary school because he was greedy for status and wanted to climb the social ladder. Her mother had raised her alone all these years. Yua felt it was time for her to start helping out and share some of the burden. There was no man at home to take care of them. So she had to step up. Yoru returned home after picking up some bread and groceries. As soon as the key clicked in the door, the sharp-eared San-san immediately stood up, her big amber eyes staring toward the entrance as she went to greet Yoru. San-san, I got some beef for your lunch. Come here. Carrying the grocery bag, Yoru changed into his slippers. Meow. Meow. San-san jumped up and ran over, rubbing against his feet affectionately. You're so cute. How could your previous owner abandon you? Or maybe you just ran off by accident. Does your owner's name have the word San in it? Yoru chuckled, scooping Sansa up into his arms and heading toward the kitchen. It was Yukino who had said that the San 3 engraved on San-san's tag was probably part of the owner's name. Yukino had experience working with many cats at a pet clinic. The purpose of the nameplate was to prevent pets from getting lost. It usually listed the owner's name and phone number, maybe even their address for easier contact. Yoru brought San-san to the kitchen, tossed the bag onto the makeshift table, and put her down. Even if your real owner sees you one day and wants to take you back, I won't give you up so easily. He playfully scratched San-san's chubby little chin and opened the fridge. Wait, no. San-san's real owner was him. Who even was the previous owner? He took out some plain boiled beef from yesterday, washed his hands, reheated the beef, shredded it, and fed some to San-san. Then he grabbed a bowl and added sesame seeds, chili, crushed peanuts, shredded onion, minced garlic, a pinch of sugar and salt, local soy sauce, and chopped cilantro. After mixing it all, he heated a cupful of oil and poured it over the sauce. The hot oil sizzled. Zzz. A mouth-watering aroma filled the air. Low-fat lunch, done. Yoru paired it with the Italian bread and mozzarella cheese he had bought, admiring his creation. Golden crispy bread, cut into 2 slices, sandwiched creamy white cheese, rich in nutrients, and strands of dark red beef. He had seen this kind of foreign dish in a short video and wanted to try it. Of course, he made several modifications of his own. Wonder if it tastes good? He held the crispy shell of the bread and took a big bite. The outer layer was crisp and dry from being toasted. Inside, the bread was incredibly soft and fluffy, slightly sweet when chewed. The aroma of cheese blended with the savory beef in his mouth into an unexpectedly delicious flavor. Delicious. And surprisingly so. Yoru's eyes lit up, and he devoured the whole big sandwich in a flash. He wanted more but restrained himself, eating a cucumber to balance it out before leaving the kitchen. After lunch, Yoru rested and took a nap. When he woke up, it was not yet 4 p.m. He pulled out his yoga mat and, after thinking for a moment, sent a message to Megumi. She had just finished her exams too and would be spending time with her family, so she'd be unavailable for a while. Yoru wasn't surprised. He sent her a photo of a white beret to see if she wanted it. Megumi politely declined, saying she had just bought the exact same one. Then I'll give it to my mom when I get home. In his mind's eye, he pictured his beautiful mother, Kitakami Megumi. She could definitely pull off wearing a white beret. She's going to love it. Excited, Yoru put away his phone. He had never thought about giving his parents a gift before. Not even a gift. He rarely even said good morning or good night. Even just a greeting might have made his mom extremely happy. After a half-hour workout, his muscles were sore and swollen. He showered, changed, and brought San-san along. He was going home. On the way to the station, at the entrance to the neighborhood, he ran into Gabriel. Good afternoon. You brought San-san with you? Gabriel greeted him first. I'm heading home. Do you have any plans for summer break, Gabriel? Not going home? Yoru looked at the petite Gabriel, who was carrying 2 large, bulging shopping bags. They were packed with snacks, drinks, and instant food. He was a bit worried whether someone her size could even carry them. Of course I'm going home, Gabriel said. But first, she planned to go wild for at least 2 weeks before heading back to heaven. Otherwise, it would be torture with no Genshin to play. Yoru nodded and left. There were no security checks at the station. Even on the Shinkansen. Carrying San-san in a cat carrier, Yoru rode the train back to his family's home in Shinagawa. Half an hour later, he arrived. At this time, Mom and Dad should be getting off work. He opened the door and let San-san out. Meow? As soon as she stepped out of the carrier, San-san warily stared at the unfamiliar place and meowed. It's okay, it's okay. This is home too. Yoru took off his sneakers and smiled, picking her up again. San-san immediately relaxed. Wearing slippers, he entered the living room, casually turned on the TV, and walked toward the kitchen. On the dining table, a white ceramic flower pot caught his eye. Wait. Isn't this? Still holding San-san in one arm, Yoru bent down and stared in surprise at the soft pink chrysanthemum blooming in the pot. A fresh floral scent filled the air. He recognized it. It was the same variety from Mariri's house. His mom, Kitakami Megumi, ran a flower shop near a park in Shinagawa. The whole house, including the yard, was filled with potted flowers. Is this a new breed? Yoru didn't think too much of it. He opened the fridge, took out a bottle of barley tea, and walked out with San-san. By 5:30 p.m. his mom, Megumi, returned home early. She brought a large bag of premium groceries to celebrate Yoru's summer break. As long as the cooking method was right, eating more wasn't a problem. And seafood was the best. High protein and clean. My son really lost a lot of weight, Megumi said as she took things out of her Toyota Alphard while observing her son. But isn't it a bit too fast? You didn't take hormone pills or anything, right? Alongside his happiness, Yoru felt a slight worry. He carried a bag of high-end fruit for his mother, which included a large watermelon, back into the house. A small black shadow darted out from the dark, startling Yoru's mother, Megumi. This is the cat I'm raising. Yoru gave an awkward smile. Really? It's so chubby and round. So cute. Megumi calmed down. It turned out to be her son's cat. Looking closer, it was plump and round, perfectly suited for her son. By the way, Mom, I bought a gift for you. Yoru suddenly remembered the white beret and rushed inside with the bag. A gift? Megumi froze. Back when she was younger, she had received plenty of gifts from admirers. If not 1,000, then at least a few hundred. But this was the first time her own son gave her a gift. Sniffling a little from emotion, Megumi's nose tingled as if she were about to cry. Yoru brought over the white beret without a gift box. Not wanting to see his mother's tearful expression, he crouched down and started playing with the cat to shift her attention. Thank you. I really like it. Yoru carefully put it away. By the way, Mom, is that chrysanthemum on the kitchen table a new variety? It smells really nice. He casually asked, having remembered it. Yes, it is a new variety. Megumi replied with a smile. It had been bred by Sawamura Sayuri, a regular customer and friend of hers from the flower shop. She gave Megumi a few pots as a gift. Megumi had simply placed one on the dining table. By the way, have you done your follow-up checkup since being discharged from the hospital? Megumi asked while changing shoes. Checkup? Do I still need one after being discharged? Yoru was surprised. The doctor hadn't mentioned anything. The doctor said it's best to do a full-body checkup, including blood and urine. Go tomorrow, and bring the report back to show me. Megumi calmly told a white lie. She was just worried that Yoru had lost too much weight too quickly and wanted to trick him into getting a thorough exam to ease her own mind. Okay. Yoru didn't hesitate and didn't suspect anything. After resting for a while, Megumi called Yoru over to help her with dinner. Her goal was simple. She just wanted to spend time with her son. No matter what her son was like outside. At home, whether he was fat or annoying, he was still her precious child. And now, Yoru was thin. Sitting in a chair, Yoru used a toothbrush to clean a large abalone. Both sides were dark and covered in seaweed, squirming slightly. It was a far cry from what Iriri would eat. Around 7 p.m., Yoru's father, Toyoitani, came home, and the family enjoyed a hearty dinner together. The next day was free. Yoru went for his checkup. It took nearly a whole day to complete. Some results wouldn't be ready until the next day. On the third day, Yoru went out to pick up his test report and sent a copy to his mother via phone. He also included his final exam scores. Without staying long, he headed home at noon with San-san. In the same train car, he ran into Nanami, who was returning from her part-time job. Aoyama-san, just got off work? Yoru greeted her, reminded of his own desire to earn money through a part-time job to buy gifts. Maybe lose a bit more weight first. Yeah, and you? Nanami took a small sip from her water bottle. She was really frugal. I'm coming back from my parents' place. Heading back to the apartment. Aren't you going home for summer break? Yoru asked, facing her. He only knew a little about Nanami. Not much. Just that she didn't have a great relationship with her family, who didn't support her dreams. She had come to Tokyo all by herself. I'm not going back for summer break. Nanami's mood dipped a little. Why? Why wouldn't her family support her decision? Why wouldn't they support her dreams? She had even compromised, promising to study both voice acting and doll making so she could eventually take over the family's doll shop. But her father still wouldn't agree. He had forced her to flee to Tokyo. Since then, Nanami had only returned home briefly when her grandmother passed away. She wanted to go out and have fun too. She wanted to eat, drink, laugh, and enjoy herself. Ah. Yoru looked deeply at her and realized he'd said the wrong thing. It's okay. My dad and I just don't get along. He's a stubborn old man, stuck in the Showa era. I just don't want to go back, that's all. Nanami quickly pulled herself together and smiled with squinted eyes. Her ponytail gently swayed behind her. The view outside the fast-moving train rushed by in reverse. So pretty. That was Yoru's first thought, and then he quickly nodded. A while later. The train reached their stop, and the two walked home together. Nanami took out her key, opened her apartment door, and went straight for the shower. In the mist, her snow-white figure shimmered faintly. Thunk suddenly, the water from the shower had stopped. Nanami didn't want to waste water. She grabbed a blue towel and wiped her face and hair. Then she picked up a white towel and dried her body. Afterward, she blew her hair dry, lay down on her bed for a quick rest, and hugged a tiger-shaped plushie. It was hard to imagine that such a tough high school girl still slept hugging a stuffed animal. Torajiru. Nanami called out the plushie's name as she held it tightly. If anyone saw this, they'd probably laugh at her. But Torajiru was one of Nanami's most treasured belongings. It had been handmade by her late mother and had accompanied her to sleep ever since she was little. Even now, Nanami couldn't sleep without it. Her family ran a traditional doll shop that made geisha dolls. She had both talent and skill, and her stubborn father saw her as the natural heir. Especially since she had no siblings. But because she dreamed of becoming a voice actress, she broke ties with her family. Yoru returned home, played with San-san for a while, then pulled out his yoga mat to work out. When his muscles started to ache, he stopped to take a shower. Then he pulled out Yukino's notes and textbooks and began reviewing. 2 hours later, Yoru stopped writing, exhausted, and lazily collapsed on the couch. It was only afternoon. But he already felt bored. He really had nothing left to do. Even the games he used to love, the ones he'd stay up all night grinding. He had zero motivation to play anymore. Back then, he'd spend all his time gaming and browsing on his phone. It felt like there was never enough time. San-san, are you bored too? Yoru didn't really know how to read cats. He reached out and gently patted San-san's head. Time flew by, and just like that, a week had passed. That morning, Yoru stood on the scale, excited and full of anticipation. It was the 10th day of summer break, about a quarter of it gone. He had jumped out of bed, not even brushing his teeth or washing his face, just eager to check his weight. The numbers on the scale lit up instantly. Yoru's breath seemed to freeze as he stared down intensely. The number settled on 198. 198 pounds. Not bad. I've already moved from severe obesity to moderate. I can start looking for a simple job now. Seeing the number, Yoru wasn't overly excited but still gave himself some encouragement. With his height, the ideal weight range should be between 115 to 125 pounds. Putting away the scale, Yoru brushed his teeth, washed his face, and finished his fasted cardio. Then, unable to wait, he stepped into the shower, stripped down, and examined his body. It had grown again. His future girlfriend would be in for some suffering. Especially if she was petite like Ariri. No, wait. The excess fat that used to bulge on his fair face whenever he smiled was gone, his facial features were beginning to show some definition. Still a bit chubby. Faces are the hardest to slim down after all. Back during the school outing, his waist looked like a water tank. Now, it had gone from cannon to rifle. Barrel-shaped. That was a good sign. The fat on his thighs, which used to jiggle with every step, had clearly shrunk. His entire body was shrinking. At this weight, I can switch up my training regimen. Yoru quickly got dressed and stared at the person in the mirror, a little dazed. Was that really him? Laughter echoed from the bathroom. A few minutes later, Yoru calmed down and had breakfast. While playing with a newly awake San-san, he began to draft a new advanced fat loss plan. With his tenfold return buff, there was no need to throw money at a gym. The next day, Yoru left the house, carrying a sports shoulder bag filled with a sandwich breakfast, a water bottle, and a sweat towel. He had originally chosen to rent nearby because of the historical Matsudera Residence Ruins Park. The Tokyo Metropolitan Art Museum was located inside this beautiful park. Perfect for running. Yoru started with a brisk walk for warm-up as he made his way there. It was still early morning. The busy Tokyo metropolis was just waking up. Near the park, the air felt noticeably fresher. Warm sunlight filtered down. Yoru entered the park. Shaded by lush trees, the pathways were wide and well lit. He saw a few elderly people and children already out for exercise. After a while, Yoru found a bench and set his shoulder bag on it. He took a small sip of water from his thermos and began warming up. He stretched carefully to avoid pulling any muscles, did a few jumps to activate his muscle groups. Especially his calves. Once warmed up, Yoru set the bench as his starting point, grabbed his phone, and began a light jog. His goal, 1,000 meters. This was an ideal starter distance for someone like him. Overweight and inexperienced. Back in school, he had run before. Every time, he was dead last. Others would run while he could only power walk. The moment he tried to speed up, his knees couldn't handle the weight. His lung capacity was poor, and he'd quickly start hurting. Plus, he was always under the gaze of others. Falling behind made him want to catch up. That threw off his rhythm and breathing, making him exhaust himself even more. Now, with much less weight and no one watching, jogging alone felt comfortable. After 200 meters, Yoru began to feel the strain and broke a light sweat. He left his shoulder bag behind. He wasn't worried about theft. Just breakfast and a thermos inside. At 500 meters, more than half his energy was spent. Yoru reduced his pace, and his breathing grew chaotic. At 700 meters, unable to hold on, he switched to a power walk, gritting his teeth through the muscle soreness. Finally, when his fitness app notified him he had run 1,000 meters, he came to a stop. No rush. Huff. Take it slow. 7 days to adjust, then gradually add 500 meters each week. Yoru leaned on one knee, panting. Once he recovered, he walked back to the bench. His training plan wouldn't stop there. Back home, he'd still do crunches, planks, jumping jacks, and some light strength training. At night, no more running. Just more cardio. Adjusting his routine as his body adapted. Near the bench, a dachshund with a red bone-shaped collar circled the bench repeatedly, its shiny black eyes fixed hungrily on Yoru's bag. Drool was about to drip from its mouth. Yoru hadn't noticed. He was scrolling news on his phone. Another Yakuza skirmish had broken out recently. Only when he returned to the bench did he spot the brown-furred dachshund. I remember. Wasn't Yuagahama-san's dog also this breed? Yoru could tell right away this wasn't her dog. Woof. Woof. Pace barked as Yoru reached for his bag, sitting down and opening its mouth. Yoru, drinking from his thermos, looked curiously at the well-trained dog. Woof woof. Its nose was full of sandwich aroma. It barked flatteringly and raised a paw. You're so smart. Do you want to shake hands? Yoru hadn't yet realized the issue. It was all Chikafujiwara's fault. Taking the dog out early in the morning without feeding it first. Woof woof. Swagged its tail furiously, eyes full of longing. Are you hungry? Just as Yoru was about to grab a sandwich, it hit him. Then he pulled out one wrapped in cling film. drooled and rolled around to act cute. Yoru chuckled, unwrapped the sandwich, and tore off about a third to place on the ground. It was a healthy sandwich. Whole grain bread, lettuce, tomato slices, bacon, and seasoned shredded chicken. Whimper sparked in gratitude before starting to eat. Yoru had brought 2 sandwiches. He shared a portion of the second one too. After finishing breakfast and sipping some water, he headed home to resume his workout. Woof woof. Sparked smartly, sending Yoru off before running off again. The park was huge. On the other side near the artificial lake, Chika Fujiwara, in a tracksuit and wearing a white headband, anxiously called for Ps. Finally, the dog came running. She rushed up with the leash in hand. She had let Ps roam free for a while, and in the blink of an eye, it had vanished. Woof woof. Ps reached Chika, its mind still full of the delicious sandwich. What did you eat, Ps? Chika crouched down, noticing food residue at the corner of its mouth, instantly worried. Dogs couldn't tell what food might be harmful. Woof. As the future Prime Minister's dog, how could it be ordinary? It had been thoroughly trained. Ps's intelligence was no less than that of a guide dog or a rescue dog. No more eating random things next time. Chika warned seriously. Afternoon. The sun blazed overhead. Yoru used a cat toy to play with Sansan while watching TV in boredom. He really had nothing left to do. He wanted to do cardio, but his body wasn't a machine. It needed rest. Even machines need power and periodic replacement of old parts. As for studying, he had crammed 2.5 hours earlier. His brain was mush. Maybe I should go out for a bit, find something to do. After moving out on his own, Yoru had discovered his talent and interest in cooking. He glanced at the kitchen, put down the cat toy, and walked over. Soon, the sound of heavy items being moved echoed from the small kitchen. Yoru was cleaning the kitchen, clearing out space. Sansan stood on the back of the sofa, staring intently. Half an hour passed. Yoru finished cleaning, but still wasn't satisfied, so he ended up doing a full deep clean of the entire place. Wasn't this also a kind of aerobic exercise in its own way? He swept out a whole bag of trash and even made slight adjustments to the room layout. Yoru took the adult comics and games he'd already gone through and stuffed them together with regular games into a big box under the bed. He didn't need them anymore. He could sell them as second-hand when he found the time. It was a big box. He might be able to recoup some money from it. Exhausted and unable to move, Yoru rested for a while. Feeling fulfilled, he headed out again. He took a bus and arrived at the Seibu department store in the harbor district. Yoru went straight to the kitchen appliance section. Since it was summer vacation, and Japan had the world's most visa-free travel privileges, the store was promoting sunscreen and similar seasonal products. There was also a lottery. Spend a certain amount and you could draw once. Yoru bought an air fryer, a small electric oven, and a high-speed blender. All kitchenware. He wanted to improve his cooking skills. He was bored anyway. Gabriel seemed to have gone home, Nanami was working part-time, and Megumi was with her family, likely traveling. Students who could attend Shuchin usually had pretty decent family backgrounds. So what could he do? There was no one to talk to. Aside from aerobic workouts, all he could do was review his studies. Might as well. Once he slimmed down and returned to a normal diet, he would make up for all the suffering he endured during this time. He paid a bit extra to have the supermarket deliver the items. Holding his receipt, he headed to the first floor of the department store for the lottery. Honestly, putting the lottery station right on the first floor where everyone could see it was a smart way to trigger consumer impulse and the dream of winning a big prize. The grand prize was a 10-day luxury Mediterranean cruise for 3. First prize was a luxury cruise departing from Chiba port. Holding his receipt, Yoru quietly queued up. Logically, with my small luck buff active, I should occasionally encounter good fortune. Will I win something? There were a dozen or so people ahead of him. The lottery machine was one of those old-style transparent spinning ball machines. Somehow that made it feel more trustworthy. Yoru watched closely. Almost no one among the dozen ahead had drawn anything above 4th prize. Someone did win a 4th prize. A pack of soda. Please spin. A staff member scanned Yoru's receipt and, after verifying it, affixed a label and gave him the go-ahead. Yoru licked his lips and gave the lottery machine a light spin. White balls filled nearly half the machine. As it spun, a few green balls flashed by. Clack clack. Suddenly, a blue ball rolled out of the narrow chute. A blue one. Excuse me, what prize is this? Yoru knew his small luck had kicked in and pointed to the blue ball in the tray, asking the staff. White meant no prize, green meant 4th prize. So his blue won. Could it be 1st prize? Chapter 79, this is 3rd prize, not 1st, sir. The staff running the machine maintained a professional smile. What's the 3rd prize? Yoru didn't show any disappointment. The odds of winning were low to begin with. A third prize was already pretty good. It's a 3-day, 2-night group tour for 2 in Kanagawa Prefecture. It must be used within a month. The staff explained and turned to retrieve the prize. About 10 seconds later, Yaru was handed a blue and white travel voucher. He examined it. The back has the usage details. Please check it carefully. If you have any questions, contact the travel agency listed. The staff smiled and turned to the next eager customer in line. Thank you. Yaru glanced at the ticket, which had images of blue skies, clouds, the ocean, and several famous Kanagawa landmarks as watermarks, then stuffed it into his pocket. He walked out of the department store, left the plaza, and headed to the street to cross. A black Mercedes S-Class caught his eye. More accurately, it was the woman getting into the back seat. Sawamura Sayuri. That's what really caught Yoru's attention. She looked a bit taller than Ariri, had long purple twin tails, and her side profile looked somewhat similar to Ariri's. She radiated energy and youth. So it really is her. Yoru hadn't mistaken her. When he planned his revenge against Ariri, one of the most basic things he did was research her. Online, with just a bit of effort, anyone could find photos and news of Ariri's parents attending events together. Hey! Thinking of Ariri, Yoru let out a faint chuckle. Just then, the crosswalk countdown ended, and Yoru crossed the street. It was still early. He wasn't in a rush to go home and instead went to Akihabara by bus. He didn't plan to buy anything. He'd already spent enough today. He went straight to the police station at Wonchomei and confirmed his identity to retrieve his lost item. It was a canvas shoulder bag containing a high-end art book, a Suica transit card, some tissues, and random small items. To others, it was just junk. He found a nearby bench, sat down, and took out the thick art book from the bag. Weighing it in his hands, he flipped open a random page. A sketch of a female character. Ruined. No identifiable features. He turned another page. It was just a leg sketch. The art book was as thick as a dictionary. It could probably be used for a long time. After flipping through it for a few minutes, Yoru put it away. Most of the characters inside were fan art, rough drafts of adult content, with a unique art style. Maybe, if I'm patient, I can match the art style and find the original artist. That must be the original owner. Yoru smiled and packed the art book into the canvas bag and slung it over his shoulder. As for the contents, he was certain. He'd never seen that art style before. No memory of it. Everyone has their own taste. Totally normal. If he listed it on a second-hand website or an otaku forum, it could probably fetch some money. Thinking this, Yoru headed to the station to go home. Not to his apartment. With a buff that gave him tenfold returns on effort, he was slimming down way too fast. Even he was shocked. This joy. He had to share it with his parents. And to avoid any confusion after not seeing them for a while. If he suddenly appeared as a slim guy after being overweight for years, they'd probably be startled. He got home around 5 p.m. Yoru remembered the Kanagawa travel ticket, pulled it out for a glance, then slipped it into the canvas bag. Who could he go with? Gabriel? Probably back home. Nanami was working and might not want to go on a trip with him. A 3-day, 2-night trip for 2? It screamed romantic getaway. It was easy to get the wrong idea. He used to be a fat loser. Even slimmed down, would any girl actually like him? Besides, which girl at school hadn't secretly called him a disgusting fat otaku behind his back? The students at Shuchin were all arrogant as hell. Today, Yaru's parents came home early. From work, and together. The moment they saw his back, both thought someone had broken in. The weight Yoru had lost was roughly equivalent to a whole Ariri. How could that not be shocking? His parents greeted him. His mom, Megumi, immediately pulled his dad, Toyotani, into their bedroom. Have you been secretly? Megumi gripped her husband's hand, staring him down. No. I was worried about you. You've always wanted this. Before she could finish, Toyotani cut her off. He had always been the most against their son taking hormone pills or undergoing gastric surgery. There was no helping it. Yoru had lost weight too quickly. Anyone who didn't know the full story would just assume he had a different physique, nothing unusual. But Toyotani and Megumi knew better. Are you sure the health check report from before showed nothing wrong? The couple discussed things seriously. No problems. Back then, I took hormone tests. Testosterone in the blood and urine samples showed completely normal. Besides, those hormone drugs are expensive. Our son couldn't afford them, and they're hard to get. Toyotani nodded without hesitation. Then what's going on? Megumi relaxed a little. I don't know. As long as there's nothing wrong with his health, isn't it a good thing? Toyotani hesitated, then shook his head. Next time, try to trick him into getting another checkup. Tell him the company needs health reports from the whole family for employee care. It's for the family insurance. Megumi, still graceful and beautiful, exhaled. You're so clever. Toyotomi paused, then hugged her. Meanwhile, in the living room, Yoru was eating fruit, completely unaware that he was about to be tricked again. A while later, Toyotomi came down to give him a bit of allowance and casually observed him. Just by looking, their son seemed perfectly healthy. Megumi, on the other hand, went out to the yard to dig up a few flowers to deliver to a friend. Mom, why don't you just use a delivery service instead of going yourself? Yoru helped refill the soil and couldn't help but ask. It's for a friend of mine. It's better if I deliver them personally. Then how about you do it for me? Megumi packed up the flowers. Sure. Yoru didn't refuse his mom's request. He just didn't know that the destination was Ariri's house. Yoru once again arrived at the familiar luxury villa neighborhood. Wide asphalt roads, barely any pedestrians. It felt like the air itself was fresher. Last time he came here, he was full of hatred and impulsive thoughts. This time, he hesitated. A few hundred meters away from Ariri's house, Yoru stopped under a utility pole. In his hand, he carried a transparent latex bag with a layer of soil inside. The flowers were temporarily planted in it. On his back was the canvas shoulder bag carrying the expensive art book. Yoru hadn't planned to eat at home, so he brought the bag along. He intended to go straight back to the apartment after delivering the flowers. What he didn't expect was that the address his mom gave him was Ariri's house. Ariri's mother, Sawamura Sayuri. The same woman he had just seen earlier that afternoon. She was one of Megumi's regular flower shop customers and friends. His mom even told him to say hello to Sayuri for her. Yoru was completely dumbfounded. He stood there without moving. He was sure Ariri wouldn't dare make things openly hostile with him. He'd confirmed this multiple times. But he didn't know if she'd behave strangely and let her parents notice something was off. Maybe Ariri could hold it in herself, but under the guidance of her parents, she might suddenly come to her senses. No. I'm overthinking it. I'm just here to deliver flowers. Yoru shook his head repeatedly to chase away the messy thoughts in his mind. It wasn't Ariri he was afraid of. What's there to fear in a cute, petite girl like her? It'd make more sense if Ariri was afraid of him. It was Sayuri who was scary. What he was feeling wasn't fear of Ariri, but the anxiety of having done something bad to her and now having to face her parents. Whatever. What's there to be scared of? Sayuri is not going to eat me. Clenching his teeth as the sun began to set, Yoru strode forward. He arrived at the familiar tall iron gate. Yoru took a deep breath, glanced at the security cameras and the luxurious house inside, and pressed the intercom. Inside the villa, Ariri was carefully wiping the cream off strawberries, eating them one by one. Now, whenever she saw white food, she lost her appetite. If it was milk, she'd instinctively start gagging. Suddenly, the intercom chimed. It meant someone was at the front gate. Coming. Ariri knew her mother's friend was coming by to deliver flowers. Sayuri had told her earlier, then went to take a bath. So Ariri had to answer the gate. After washing her hands, she pushed the door open and walked toward the gate. If she had checked the camera and seen that it was Yoru outside, she absolutely wouldn't have gone. So hot. Wearing a light short-sleeved top and slippers, Ariri stepped outside. When she passed through the garden and glanced toward the gate, she saw Yoru. The distance was a bit far, and Ariri was nearsighted. Without her glasses, she couldn't recognize who it was. She didn't expect Yoru to have lost weight so fast. He was still chubby, but his figure was clearly different. Ariri? Yoru saw her cute face clearly and muttered softly, his expression unchanged. He was just here to deliver flowers. He'd leave right after. No need to linger. As he got closer to the iron gate, about 10 meters away, Ariri stared at him, stopped in her tracks, parted her lips slightly, and squinted her eyes. Why did he look so familiar? A nearsighted world is a blurry one. Ariri, it's me. Yoru called her by name directly. In Japan, only close people call each other by name like this. He and Ariri were obviously very close. It's you. Ariri reacted like a golden retriever whose favorite bone had just been stolen. Completely triggered. The voice was familiar. It matched the one from her nightly nightmares of being pinned down by a gross, fat creep. Her pupil shrank into slits, and she finally recognized who it was. Instinct took over. Ariri turned and bolted. Yoru was stunned. A few steps later, Ariri came to her senses and let out a sigh of relief. Right. The gate was locked. Yoru couldn't get in. Besides, Mom's really home. What am I scared of? Ariri told herself this and turned around, but her face still showed wariness and tension. There was still a bit of fear. Ariri, come on already. Yoru called to her helplessly, like someone summoning a little dog. Why was Ariri the one answering the door? He just wanted to drop off the flowers and go home. You bastard, why are you at my house again? Here to bully me again? Go to hell, you disgusting stray mutt. My mom's really home, so get lost. Ariri reached the iron gate and looked Yoru up and down, then burst into angry shouting. Slimmed down? Still a fat pig. Gross. She muttered in her mind, remembering the suffocating feeling of being pinned under that disgusting creature. A cold shiver ran down her back. I'm here to deliver flowers to your mom. Yoru ignored her insults and got straight to the point. You? Deliver flowers? Ariri tilted her head and saw the latex bag in his hand. What? You thought I came here to threaten you again? Bully you more? Yoru didn't need mind reading to know what she was thinking. Humphrey, you wouldn't dare. Ariri snorted. Sure enough, dogs bark the loudest when they're behind a fence. I really don't dare. You take the flowers inside. I'll be going now. Yoru tried to push the latex bag with flowers through the gap in the gate. At that moment, Sawamura Sayuri had just finished her bath. Not seeing Ariri around, she stepped outside. Yoru tried several times but still couldn't fit the bag through the gap. Leave it at the gate. I'll come out and get it after you leave. Ariri kept a close eye on Yoru, grinding her teeth in anger. Last time, she'd let her guard down, and it had led to a disaster. She still hadn't recovered. And she had to pretend like nothing had happened at school and at home. Every night, she would hide under the covers and cry. Yoru didn't say a word. He gently placed the bag down and walked over to grab the canvas bag. The art book inside was thick and heavy. Wait. Ariri suddenly furrowed her brow, remembering something important. Mom said her friend would be dropping off flowers. How come? Ariri's eyes went wide, shouting in surprise. How come it's you? Because my mom is friends with your mom. She was busy, so I came instead. Yoru winced internally and turned to look at Ariri, who was clearly shocked. It was hard to believe, but just a coincidence. You? What did you just say? Ariri froze completely. That's right. Don't be so shocked. And you clarified things with Kasumijoka Utaha. Yoru said casually and brought up the main issue with Ariri. But he didn't get to finish his sentence. Sawamura Sayuri came running from the garden. Mom. Ariri turned around and was startled. Her whole body tensed up. She stood frozen, unable to move, watching Sayuri run over. Her heart suddenly clenched with fear. Ah, sorry, I'm late. You're Megami's son, right? Sayuri jogged up and stopped next to Ariri. Yes, Auntie Sayuri. My name is Yoru. Yoru greeted her politely, showing no signs of panic. His expression didn't change at all. Nice to meet you. Your mom has told me about you. Sayuri glanced at Ariri and assumed she was just shy. She gave Yoru a warm smile. He wasn't all that fat. Megami had told her her son was really fat. Well then, Auntie, I'll be heading off. Yoru didn't want to stick around any longer. In a hurry? You came all the way to deliver flowers. Want to come in and sit for a while? Auntie's about to make dinner. Why not stay and eat? Sayuri extended the invitation warmly, not out of politeness. This was her friend's son. Of course she had to treat him well. No need, Auntie. My house is a bit far. Yoru smiled politely and waved his hand. All right then. I won't keep you. Be safe on the way back. Sayuri opened the gate. Clack. The sound made Ariri shiver. Oh right, this is my daughter, Sawamura Ariri. You're a student at Shuchin too, right? Sayuri had planned to step outside but turned back and pulled Ariri forward. Mom. Ariri reluctantly looked at her mother. Yes, I've already said hello to Sawamura-san before. Yoru nearly lost control of his expression. Auntie Sayuri. If you knew what I did to your precious daughter, you'd probably want to kill me, wouldn't you? Say hi properly. Sayuri smiled. Ariri opened her mouth to refuse but was afraid Sayuri would notice something. So she reluctantly greeted him. Yoru responded with a fake smile, deliberately avoiding her gaze. He walked to the side and picked up the canvas bag that Ariri had lost, slinging it over his shoulder. To others, the name Kashiwagi Iri might just bring to mind a famous Jinchai artist. But Yoru, who had mind-reading abilities, could easily verify it if he wanted. That bag. Sayuri stepped out to check the flowers inside the latex bag. Ariri quickly covered her mouth, staring dead at Yoru as he walked away carrying her canvas bag. Once the disgusting fat creep had left, Ariri rushed back to her room and threw herself on the bed. That bag I lost when I went to Akihabara with Aki. It had my art book inside. How did it end up with him? There's no mistake, even the details match. She remembered a spot where she had accidentally spilled paint on the bag. That's how she was sure. If he finds out I'm Kashiwagi-iri, will he use it to threaten me? No, he definitely knows that art book is mine. He'll definitely suspect me. I'm the ace of the art club. Iri rolled on the bed in distress, flopping spread eagle as she stared at the ceiling. Yoru now had leverage over her. But it was different from the Kashiwagi-iri identity. The leverage Yoru held could cause mutual destruction. If he exposed it, she'd be implicated too. But if Iri's secret identity as Kashiwagi-iri got out, it wouldn't affect Yoru at all. She was a student at Shushin Academy, yet secretly a famous erotic jin artist. And her father was a diplomat. A massive scandal. It wouldn't just affect her. It would also damage her diplomat father. What do I do? What do I do? Iri muttered anxiously. She knew she was probably overthinking. But no matter how she looked at it, if Yoru found out she was Kashiwagi-iri, things would only get worse for her. She really was scared. Even if she didn't consider all that, the art book itself was incredibly important to her. It held half the creative output she'd accumulated over the years. He must have picked it up. It's all Aki's fault. Iri suddenly thought of Aki Tomoya, and then Kasumijoka Utaha. She still hadn't figured out how to clarify things to Utaha. Should she go and explain it to Utaha directly? But Iri was afraid that Utaha would tell Tomoya. Actually, she was sure Utaha would. Then what would her childhood friend Tomoya think of her? Disappointment? Shock? Disgust? She had committed a crime. Done something childish and ridiculous, letting Yoru take the blame. Or maybe Utaha would threaten her, demand she stay away from Tomoya, and then order her around using that leverage. There was another option. Go straight to the school and confess everything. Use her status to ask the school for confidentiality, clear Yoru's name. But that was risky. Kasumijoka Utaha would definitely stir up trouble. Her fate would be in the school's hands, and she'd have to rely on her father's influence and social capital. Both ways of clearing things up had pros and cons. Iri had no idea which to choose. In fact, she didn't want to choose at all. She didn't want to face it. She just wanted to run away from everything. But Yoru was weighing her down. On her cute, petite body. Rendering her completely helpless. If only there were a third option. Iri stared blankly, feeling utterly overwhelmed. The next morning, after returning from her run, in front of the apartment, the supermarket delivery guy had been waiting for a while. Everything Yoru ordered, an air fryer, oven, and other kitchen appliances, had arrived. He moved all the kitchen appliances into the kitchen, plugged them in, and made sure they worked fine. Yoru signed for the delivery and couldn't wait to try them out. He took out a tray of chicken wings he had prepped in advance from the fridge. Yoru tore off the plastic wrap, drained the blood, and placed the marinated and seasoned mid-joint wings onto a piece of paper designed for air frying. He sprayed a little oil and loaded them in. Set to 10 minutes. Once that was done, Yoru waited quietly. He took a quick shower, and by the time he returned to flip the wings, the aroma had already hit him full force. He'd already had breakfast, so he wasn't very hungry, but his mouth was watering like crazy. After playing with San for a bit, Yoru took out the finished wings. The surface had evenly turned a beautiful golden brown, the kind Michelin chefs would love. The rich aroma wafted out and slowly spread through the room. Gabriel, who'd been going wild for more than half a month, had decided to go home today. She was on the balcony, using a clothes hanger to collect her panties, when the amazing smell hit her. So good. Where's that coming from? Gabriel's stomach growled loudly, and her body naturally followed the scent. Knock knock knock. Yoru was holding a chicken wing dripping with juice, just about to turn on the TV and enjoy his feast, when he went to answer the door. Gabriel? Weren't you going home? Yoru looked at her in surprise. I'm going back today. That smells amazing. Gabriel replied casually, scrunching up her nose like a puppy sniffing the air. Then come in and have some. By the way, ever since that day, you've just been home playing games, haven't you? Yoru stepped aside to let Gabriel in. It's summer break. What's wrong with playing games? I mean, you can play them at home too. Might as well get your fill. As she answered, Gabriel slipped off her shoes and walked in like she owned the place. On the small table in the living room, Sanson stood to the side, curiously eyeing the chicken wings. To humans, those wings, deeply marinated with all kinds of spices, were irresistible. But for a cat, the smell wasn't that great. Yoru followed behind and stripped the meat from a wing in one bite, pulling out 2 bare bones. Wash your hands first, he reminded Gabriel as she walked over. That smells way too good. I can't take it. Gabriel had been living on bland instant food lately. At first, it was okay. But too much of it was unbearable. Now, smelling the aroma of Yoru's secret recipe wings, she was salivating uncontrollably. Yoru took out 2 bottles of juice and handed her one. By the way, I might be staying home for a month. Probably won't be back until school starts. Gabriel grabbed a wing with her soft, fair hand and brought it to her mouth. Got it. Yoru nodded. The Gabriel in front of him was so unrestrained. He closed his eyes, remembering the moment they first met. The Gabriel from back then wasn't coming back. So good. Gabriel, unable to hold back, had her sleepy, lifeless eyes light up into stars. It was just too delicious. She felt like moving in with Yoru, just to eat his food every day. Yoru would cook, she'd eat,